Jeremy Roach, very dangerous in the mid-range. What a great pass.
Beautiful bounce pass into Filipowski.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
Roach. Yes! Right off the inbounds, a three-pointer.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
3 to shoot. Here's Roach.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Cross it over, all the way to the rim. Highlight move from Roach.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
That was a career high effort for Jackson. That is Roach. Down the lane and they got fouled.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Roach stepping back.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
We have a lot to get to today, including that FSU ACC hearing that's going on, the lawsuit, also transfer portal news when it comes to football, looking back at some of the spring games, and also much more to discuss when it comes to college football and the power structure. Ross Dellinger in a story today with Yahoo Sports, but we're now joined by Baylor guard Jeremy Roach, Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak, and David Smoak on 365 Sports. Right off the top, Jeremy, we appreciate your time. Whenever you commit and you go from high school to college, or players who come on this show, we say, are you relieved this is over? You've been through this before. Are you relieved it's over? And then again, what was the difference in Baylor being your choice? And again, thanks for your time.
No, appreciate you for having me. Yeah, I'm for sure. I'm a senior, so I've been through the recruiting process, and I know how hectic that can be with the meetings and the visits and all that stuff. So I kind of want to make my process fast. But Baylor and being my choice, just the coaching staff, just the energy they gave towards me was big time. Their playing style, Coach Drew, he's had success with guards like me in the past. So I felt like this is a great option for my fifth year.
You play 4 years at Duke. You've been there, and it's always hard to leave a place. What were your emotions when making the decision, and then how did the coaching staff, when you decided to make this decision, make you feel about, deciding to leave a place that's really tough for anybody to leave, whether it's 1 year or 4 years like you were there?
Yeah, it was my time at Duke was great. I felt like it was my all. I stayed for 4 years, which is so rare nowadays. How guys want to go one and done, but me coming in as a 5-star recruit and staying for 4 years, I felt like just my passion, my sacrifices that I made just for staying 4 years. I feel like all the fans and the coaching staff and everybody around the program and the university kind of appreciate that. So when I decided to kind of hit the portal, there was no hard feelings there. They were super excited just for my next journey. They're there to support me. And there wasn't any bad blood lost. I stayed there for 4 years. I did my 4 years there, so everybody's pretty happy. And I feel like my legacy won't be tarnished or anything what people want to say. So everybody was super happy with it.
Yeah, you definitely put in your time, no doubt about that, Jeremy. And when it comes to Baylor specifically, when did they sort of just get on your radar in general? How much did you really know about the program? How was that seed kind of planted? And what do you know about the program that you're walking into? How much have they been on your radar just as a college basketball player and a fan over the years?
Yeah, I've been a huge fan of this program for quite some time. I've watched them multiple times. But just kind of seeing them from afar. I've always been kind of a fan, and when they reached out to me, it was kind of a no-brainer. They fit my play style, just the energy that Coach Drew, and how much better the guards get there. So it was kind of an easy decision.
Jeremy, how much now do you lead the way? Because Baylor's not done hunting. They got some others that they're trying to bring in to help supplement and also add more to the roster because of the attrition. How much are you involved in that right now?
I'm very involved in it right now. Coach Drew wanted me to be the first kind of the head of the snake, and then kind of go after who we think would be right for next year's team. There's been a couple guys on the radar, but I'm for sure locked in on that recruiting process, being a recruiter. So.
What is it like coming in and knowing that you have another veteran or two of them besides you, Langston Love and Jaden Nunn, that are experienced, that you guys can kind of have that, veteran presence with some really good young guards that are coming in like VJ Edgecombe as well?
Yeah, it's gonna be huge. Just playing with those two experienced guards, just playing them this year. Both physical defenders, can score. And I think we're really going to complement each other. And then with BJ and Rob coming in, I think it's going to be just us giving them that knowledge that we've had through our college experience, and kind of leading those young guys in the right direction, and kind of lead them in the right path. So I think it would be huge just for all five of us to kind of complement each other, and we can help one another grow in different aspects of the game, and get each other better every day in practice. So.
Have you met anybody as joyous, I guess is a word we always kind of revolve back around to, as Scott Drew? Have you met anybody quite like him and sort of his personality?
Yeah, he has an amazing personality to me. Just the energy that he has, the enthusiasm he has, the passion for the game that he has. I mean, it's big time. I've probably maybe had one or two coaches like him, but Scott Drew is definitely one of a kind. That's definitely a guy you want to have your back, and he gave me all the confidence, so I'm just ready to go fight.
Jeremy, I'm not sure about this. I know that your parents have been on a Zoom with the staff in your time with them and leading to the decision yesterday evening. Have you been here? Did you visit Baylor before the decision, or was this sight unseen?
No, I haven't been to Wake. I haven't been to Baylor yet.
Okay.
But I'll be there soon.
You've heard about the new arena, Foster Pavilion, which is going to be friendly confines for you. So you started 108 games. That's over 4 years. You played immediately. 108 games. I've heard unbelievable leader, unbelievable high character. Parents are incredible people. That all leads to that. How much have your parents helped you mold you in who you are today?
That's 100% who molded me. Just like I said, I said this in a couple interviews too. I mean, just their support and just everything that they do, the sacrifices that they made. They drive 4 hours to we play 2-3 times out the week, and they're at every game. So the support that they give me, the confidence that they give me, just even when I'm kind of playing bad or not, or maybe in a slump or something, they always give me that confidence and that boost, and just seeing them there in the crowd, just cheering on, not just me, but just the whole team. They just want to see everybody be successful. They've been my biggest supporters, and who molded me into who I am today.
I know that. Go ahead, Paul.
I was watching highlights of you today, as getting ready for the show, and especially I've watched you play a lot over the years at Duke, but when I kind of broke down the highlights, when you see some of the things that when people put on social media, like you should see this from Jeremy Roach. Sometimes players, it's like it's all 3-pointers, or it's all dunks, or it's all something. I mean, passing, defense, whatever it was, you seem to enjoy every single aspect of basketball.
Yeah. Yeah, that's been kind of a big thing kind of just growing up. I mean, for me, when I kind of started playing, I mean, I was passing the ball. I wasn't even a point guard when I first started playing. I was like more of a 2-3. So I was more of a scorer. Then I kind of molded into a point guard 8th grade year into high school. That's when the passing got into it. So, I mean, I kind of have all aspects of the game. And then, obviously, from the DMV, you got to have that heart, that passion, playing defense, getting down and dirty. So, I take pride in all aspects of just basketball. I mean, I'm just such a love for the game, and just such a fan of the game, too. So, I take great care of that. for sure.
Oh, you're part of that game with Baylor, 78-70, Duke beating Baylor back in non-conference. You had a heck of a game, 18 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, a couple of steals. What do you remember playing against Baylor? Were some of those guys now moving on to the next level? What do you remember about what you saw when you played them that day?
Just the MSC atmosphere. I mean, Baylor was that time at that time for us, we were kind of in a rough spot, and Baylor they were killing at that time. So I knew Scott Drew had those boys ready. I mean, with Ray J and Bridges and Misty and Nunn, they had that physical presence, and it was just a back and forth game, pretty much the whole game. But then obviously we got the dub there. But I mean, just a tough physical matchup. I mean, it was a great game for real.
You had to tell the Duke staff that you were moving on. As you said, you did your 4 years, and I know obviously they would be disappointed to lose a talent like you. But then I saw a national writer or somebody make the comment that they then, at least when it came to you and your next move, not that they made that decision, but they kind of helped with Baylor being that next decision. Is that true?
I mean, they helped for sure. But like I said, they were just super positive, and just whatever I did, whether it was go to the combine or come back to school and figure out what I was going to do for the transfer process. So just either way, I mean, they were just super supportive of it. Coach Chai, the whole staff was super on top of it. I mean, they were going to be happy either way if I stayed, if I left, if I went to the draft. So I mean, they were, like I said, they were fully supportive of it.
Baylor women have a young lady on their team. The last name is Bugs. The men now have Roach, and we saw that NIL thing with Rage. Did you even put 2 and 2 together? Now you guys can take that NIL to another level because you're going to be right next to each other.
Yeah, we can take that to another level. Definitely gonna have to meet her when I get on campus. That's kind of it's not super funny just to kind of doing that NIL thing and kind of keeping the last name in house was super fun, super funny. So I'm definitely gonna have to meet up with her on campus when I get out there.
So you played, one of the best arenas in all of sports, in Cameron Indoor, for 4 years. You're about to come to a brand new one at Foster Pavilion. You're about to go to some more. How exciting is it to get a taste of some new places to go and play, like Houston, like Kansas, like Arizona, like Baylor? Well, I mean, of course, playing all your home games at Baylor. That's going to be pretty awesome for a basketball junkie like yourself.
Yeah, I mean, the Big 12. I mean, it's going to be like what I call it's going to be bumped every night. So playing at Houston, like you said, at Allen Fieldhouse, at Oklahoma, Kansas State, like just all the different hectic environments. I mean, I feel like the ACC definitely prepares you for conferences like this, with just so many different high-level talented guys and talented teams and talented coaches. So it's going to be super fun.
Jeremy, I know you've got other things you need to do to carry on with your day. What was the process like when you entered the portal? Once you enter the portal, how quickly do people start texting you? And there's reports about different players get texted even before they enter the portal. It's a wild, crazy thing out there. What Baylor said to you that made the difference? Because I'm sure any program in the country would like to have you.
Just the urgency, how as soon as I hit the portal, I mean, they were kind of the first ones to call, and just the energy that they had, the excitement that they had, the plan that they had for me for the future, and they had my best interest, and they want guys to get better. Coach Scott Drew cares for you not only on the court but off the court after you finish playing. So I mean, it was kind of like that family feeling when I met with them. So I felt like it was kind of a gut feeling. It felt like it was the right choice.
Coach Drew is very much involved, but all the staff involved. Alvin Brooks, but Jared Nunez, I think, was very much a part of that connection. What did you know about Jared?
I really didn't know too much about him. Did a little research on him, but I mean, he's been one of the main guys that kind of got me on campus. Super supportive. I know. He's locked in with just getting guys better, whether it's in the film room or on the court or just in any aspect of life, and he's got your back. So that's for me, that's a huge thing. I just want to be around people, want to be around good people, and people who are just supportive of you through anything.
Enjoy it. I hope you do. I know you are, and we appreciate it. I've really appreciated how you've handled me yesterday, reaching out to you, how quickly you turned that around, and also being available today. Jeremy, congratulations on your decision. Look forward to getting to meet you person to person, and look forward to watching you play, too. Go be that recruiting coordinator now for Scott Drew and his staff.
Yes, I appreciate you.
Thank you. Jeremy Roach, Baylor basketball guard from Duke. He's not he can score, but one of the things that they needed with what they have kind of, since Akinjo left, is somebody out front who can be disruptive as a defensive player, like a dog out front.
So I made the open that was all Jeremy Roach because he was coming right off the top. So when I was going through the highlights, it took me 4 highlights to find one that was actually him making a basket. And that tells you a lot about a player. And it wasn't, one was a steal. The other was a ridiculous pass to Kyle Filipowski. Another one was him catching kind of an errant pass with one hand and then kind of pushing it to Filipowski. And then the fourth one was a 3-pointer in a clutch moment against North Carolina. So you see all those different things from him, and it is like Akinjo's that's a great example. They've had really good guards, but Akinjo was a more complete player than maybe some of the guys that they've had, especially when it came to defense.
Yeah, it's a big time pickup. It's a big time get and start to the transfer portal for Scott Drew and this program, especially after the flirtations with Kentucky and just the way that went. To think a week later you'd be sitting there and Scott Drew would have his own booth at Mika Sita and he'd have landed Jeremy Roach and be in line to maybe land a couple more guys that are going to be big-time prospects. It's been a little bit of a whirlwind, but well worth it. The angst and the patience required for Baylor fans. So, yeah, that was the first tipping point, it feels like. And what a tipping point it was. I mean, what a great young man and a great player that is going to be here on campus and playing in this shiny new arena with a pretty good team around him from the sounds of it. So, yeah, this is exciting. I think with football right now, there's a lot of consternation, wondering about what to expect and what actually everything is going to look like here in the next few months. But with Scott Drew and men's basketball, I mean, I've said it to Baylor fans before, but as much as you might stress yourself out about where the football program sits in the grand scheme of things, and I know we're going to talk about the latest round of disruption and all that stuff again, you can't really plan for that. You can have a damn good basketball program no matter what. Like you can hang with the big boys in basketball, and I think that's where their focus should always remain and always be cognizant of that, especially with Scott Drew, just reassuring the fans of, his status and being around. So very exciting. I think, if anything, the Kentucky situation kind of kicked maybe some people in the pants a little bit of appreciating what they've got and understanding of how good it is and how good it can be. And you see this domino falling, and there's more to come, and it's exciting for the men's basketball program.
I did see one response to when the news was happening that he was going to end up at Baylor, or they were the leading team. Somebody popped up, it cost him $1.5 million. And Jeremy Roach, by the way, his response was, man, boy, I wish. Which, again, is just someone throwing something up in the refrigerator to see if the noodle sticks and see if the spaghetti is good.
And that's just so Twitter. Like, I mean, and you know what?
Who cares?
Who cares? It's the NIL era. Yeah. That's the whole point of it.
That's what it took. Yeah.
If stars are getting $1 million, that's what we wanted, right? That's what we were all hoping for. That was what was long overdue. They're not getting their fair share, and all of a sudden, you lose a basketball pro. They're offering him $1.5 million. Well, one, I don't even think that's all the way true based on Jeremy's reaction to it.
Right.
Would it surprise me? No. But, yeah, the main thing is, even if it was true, who cares?
Yep.
It's
good
not
for him.
A big deal. Yeah.
It's not like he's like took it out of like a food bank or anything either. Like somebody gave it to him. I understand this vitriol.
A 4-year all ACC type player got $1.5 million. A highly ranked Tennessee high school quarterback prospect got like $7 million. So I think you take the sure thing for $1.5 million. You know what I mean?
This was the number one target for Baylor, and whatever Jeremy Roach decided would kickstart or change what they would do next. So they got the first piece in. There are still moving parts on who else they add to the mix, and Jeremy even said he would be helping with that. Jaden Nunn, who was going to be the point guard, is apparently still very much locked into Baylor. Yeah, they lose Walter. Miro Little, you hope, comes back. Bridges turned pro today, entering the NBA draft. Langston Love is apparently locked in on coming back, among a couple of others, with what also Edgecombe and Robert Wright.
Yeah, I mean, it's just if you're a Big 12 basketball fan, it's another great player that's also in the league now as well. That's going to make your opponent, your rival, that much more dangerous, and you in turn have to respond and, get your roster in tip-top shape. And I think it's just, another great player added to the league, and there will be more from the green and gold side, and there will be more from Tech and TCU and whoever else as well. So, that's a big splash for this program. And you mentioned Bridges. That's official. He's going to the NBA. I saw a lot of wishful thinking that he would perhaps I just never thought that was anywhere close to reality, really. And so not surprised to see.
They were fortunate he came back for last
exactly,
year.
And
he gave him what everything he could.
Yeah, I mean, it's time for him to go test the waters. I know West Virginia fans, he's got a lot of fans still back in Morgantown. But, Jalen Bridges came here and had a really nice couple years, and good luck to him on the next level, which he will have an opportunity. Not sure exactly what that looks like, but he will have an opportunity. So, everything's kind of coming into focus as far as who's in, who's out on that roster, although the who's in is still got a couple more question marks left.
We're going to go over the Ross Dellinger article a little bit later on. He's also going to join us from Yahoo Sports on the playoff, the bullies. You could use that term in a positive way if you're an SEC Big Ten guy, of the frustration and even what might have scars from the back and forth with what was on the table in 2022 before the alliance broke up, and also, of course, the Pac-12 dissolved into two. We'll have that today. Brendan Marks, he joins us from theathletic.com, covers college basketball. Yes, we'll also discuss Arch Manning, Texas, Blake Shapen at Mississippi State, Baylor spring game. They've lost 3 receivers in the portal. We'll get to that. Brendan, thanks for your time. How big a pickup do you think this was, besides the obvious for Scott Drew and staff with Jeremy Roach?
Yeah, I think it's gigantic. I mean, you're talking about a player who shot 42% from three-point land last year. It's going to fit perfectly in Scott Drew's offense, especially the fact that Baylor's losing 4 starters from last year. And more than that, Roach is, he is a senior, experienced player. He's one of 2 remaining active players left for Mike Krzyzewski's final team. Led Duke to a Final Four, led Duke to an Elite Eight again this season under John Shire. So it's a gigantic pickup. I think he fits perfectly everything Scott Drew and Baylor want to do.
Now, obviously, their lineup is going to be a lot different, Brendan. They got to get something down low, but they're going to have no shortage of guards. And even if they lose somebody like Miro Little, who could still maybe wind up in the portal as well, they're still going to have great depth there and can score. What do you think this Baylor team will look like offensively and scheme-wise next year?
Yeah, scheme-wise, I'm expecting it to be relatively similar. I mean, this is now 4 years running ever since Baylor won the national championship for the first time in program history back in 21, that the Bears have finished top 10 in Ken Palm's adjusted offensive efficiency ranking. So obviously this season with the three-point shooting, having so many interchangeable perimeter pieces, again, we'll see who else the Bears can add in the portal. There's some rumors, I'm based here in Durham, North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
North Carolina's been going after Jonas Adu from Tennessee. There's a lot of chatter that he's another Baylor target as well. So we'll see who else Baylor adds. But with the guards that they have coming back, bringing in a guy like Jeremy Roach, I would expect it to look very similar to the successful offense you saw this season.
If Baylor gets the young man from Tennessee, how much of a 1-2 punch would that be, even possibly others they're looking for too?
Yeah, he's terrific. He's a little bit of a different player than Eve Missy would have been last year. Missy, I would say, definitely was better defensively, a better athlete. But Adu, in terms of scoring on the block, in terms of having offensive skill, being able to make touch shots, he struggled in Tennessee's season-ending loss to Purdue in the Elite Eight. That was definitely not his finest performance. If you're a Baylor fan, that's not the game that I would go back and watch if you're scouting this guy. But in terms of offensive talent, he certainly brings it. His motor can run a little hot and cold. But again, that's why you're bringing in somebody like a Jeremy Roach, who, in addition to what he brings on the court, off the court is going to bring that experience. He's going to bring that veteran expectation. and he's sort of going to whip that locker room to shape. Not that it needs it, but that's the added benefit of bringing Jeremy Roach as well.
Brendan, given what's going on in the Big 12 and the transfer portal, how important was it for Baylor to make a move like this to keep pace with particularly Kansas, Houston, and Arizona, Arizona hasn't really made their big move yet either?
Yeah, Arizona hasn't made their big move yet, but obviously, Kansas has got to be one of the early front runners, in terms of portal winners so far this offseason, just the pieces they've added. And again, not done anytime soon. Kansas is going to keep adding, getting Uzon down at Houston. He is going to be a tailor-made fit, I think, for what Kelvin Sampson wants to do. So, yeah, this is the sort of move. And listen, I don't know how much of the Kentucky situation maybe sidetracked Baylor's, planning build or what Scott Drew's trying to do down there. But to finally come in to get a top transfer like this, Jeremy Roach was one of the most sought-after guards in the portal, and for good reason. I don't know that he will hit quite to the same extent that he did from three this year. It was a career best mark, almost 43%. But it's, again, you're talking about a guy who high efficiency, doesn't make mistakes. It is a perfect, malleable piece. That's the best part. Whoever else Scott Drew decides to add around Jeremy Roach, it's a pretty seamless fit. He's played on ball. He's played off ball. He can play with multiple guards. He can play as the lone guard. He can do a little bit of everything. So I think in that respect, obviously it was important, but it's a piece that sets you up well to then add more pieces.
Brendan, thank you very much for being a part of the show today on the Jeremy Roach decision to attend Baylor and what you do covering college basketball. Brendan Marks with us from theathletic.com on the heels of the interview with Jeremy Roach. We got a lot of college football to get to. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Sorry.
From Florida State, ACC, and that's just it's gonna take some time, but we'll get to that. But let's get to Ross Dellinger, who will join us as a guest at 5:25. And I really didn't think he'd have time for us because of today. He released this article last month. The biggest money fight in college sports history unfolded. Negotiations were heated and will leave a permanent scar. But could this have been avoided? How a failed deal, the Pac-12's collapse, the SEC and Big Ten's threats changed the industry forever. Would the SEC and Big Ten have left the college football playoff and abandoned the other leagues if revenue negotiations weren't to their liking? Remember, we asked Brett Yolmark up in Frisco, could you not have maybe held out a little bit more? Both commissioners, Sanki and Petiti, told Yahoo Sports they planned other options. Absolutely. We would have left.
Yeah, and this should just be another reason why the sham that was the alliance will be forever reviled. This could have happened already. We could have already been in a 12-team playoff. Everybody could have been better off, and the Pac-12 might still exist. But because they capitulated to the Big Ten and bought into Kevin Warren's bogus attempt or bogus lie that he was there, making sure we get this right for everybody, when he was just really trying to take teams out of the Pac-12 in the first place while all this was going on. That decision forever changed college football, and the Big 12 at the time and the SEC were on the same page. They were there together. Bob Bowlesby and Greg Sankey were in agreement on what this was, Notre Dame was, and then you had that alliance in there that threw a wrench in the machine and then started us down this path of all right, you guys don't want to make a deal, then it's every man for himself, and you're not going to like where we wind up on the back end of this.
Yeah, somehow the Pac-12 managed to make the wrong decision at every single turn.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think going all the way back to COVID, now you can argue over whether they were right in playing right away or holding out or whatever, but that led it into the alliance. Mm-hmm. And basically since the alliance formed, it's been nothing but just swing and a miss, swing and a miss, swing and a miss to the point where there's only two schools remaining and it's a shell of itself. But I don't get taken aback at all by the fact that the SEC and the Big Ten could and have been planning other options for themselves. I think it's pretty clear that the situation that we're in right now, the structure that everybody's under, is not sustainable, that it's on very wobbly foundation, and that it basically points to, again, in this article, amongst various other articles that are out there, of the change that's coming, everybody thinks of it's the playoff structure or it's the conferences that everybody's in or it's the levels that people are on. But the biggest change that's upcoming that's going to affect all of that is who all's in control and how are they in control and what does that look like? And I think that the answer is it won't be what we've known it as it always has been, which is the NCAA having basically all power outside of the courtrooms, of which we know that they are absolutely powerless. And that is why we are where we are, because of all these various lawsuits and people challenging them and the NCAA taking L after L, and to the point now where they tried to hold back NIL that's thriving and it should be legally. You've tried to hold back a lot of things, but the dam's bursting, and there's just change on the horizon. How big and catastrophic that wave is for the entire landscape remains to be seen, but it's coming, no doubt about it, and they've had plenty of warning. I mean, it's been out there on the horizon just growing and growing and growing for years now, so when it comes crashing down, nobody can say, we didn't see this coming.
No, you
had plenty of warning to get inland and get as high as you could, and they slow-played it, so I think this just reinforces that we're going to see a new version of college football. It may not be the Super 2 the way you think of it, of the NFL light. It might be. One thing we all can bank on, though, is it's going to be different leadership and different rules in place than what we're watching now.
Well, here's a part of the article from Ross. There was this meeting January, the morning that Georgia beat Alabama to win the national title. It appeared as if they were on the road to get this college football playoff, the format, and more done. And then the alliance, the Big Ten, ACC, and the Pac-12, pushed back against the proposal. At some point, as discussions grew heated, then Big 12 Commissioner Bob Bowlesby, frustrated and exhausted of the indecision, slowly packed his bag and began to rise from the table. The meeting isn't over, someone told him. It is for me, he shot back. What happened that day still lingers across college athletics. That's kind of a dark moment.
Also kind of dramatic.
And
but,
well, that's exactly how I read it. That's exactly how it was written,
but
as you know. Yeah.
It's intended to be that way because that was the big action that Bowlesby took, and then you can argue, or he argues at least, that that's like the moments that all created now the stinginess, if you will, or the lack of a balance. You can roll back and attribute somewhat to that time period and them not getting things done. And that's not all on Bowlesby, obviously. That's more to point to, I just think, how contentious and all over the place the arguments were. And he got to the point where he's just like, we all reached that point of like, enough already. We're not going to come to an agreement. Enough already. But not coming to an agreement back then leads us to where we are now. And a lot has happened in those couple of years to the point now where there's no balance that's going to be found that was anywhere close to the balance that could have been found back then.
I still wonder what in the minds of George Kliavkoff and Jim Phillips, what kind of deal were they going to get, like holding off doing what they were doing? Like what exactly did Kevin Warren tell them? And of course, this whole lie about, it's a scheduling partnership too. You're going to see Clemson and Oregon, and you're going to, it's going to be great. Those things I would also bring up in the lawsuit eventually if I'm Florida State and Clemson and the ACC was like, hey, we got less money in this deal because our commissioner got snookered by a guy who's not even there anymore.
Yeah,
so
Warren's gone. Bowlesby's gone. Obviously,
that's also a
Kliavkoff.
big part of the article is some of the, I guess, weeding through all of these
Power
various
brokers,
issues is the fact that it's, when you have like a power vacuum, how dangerous can that be, right? It can be even more dangerous than the people that are already in place because all of a sudden you got all these different voices. Now, it's not dangerous as in like a country lost a leader and now there's a civil war to replace the guy or anything, but there is suddenly a vacuum of leadership when you mention all those names that were involved at that point that are no longer involved. And so there's a lot of politicking and jostling going on, I would imagine, that just further complicates things. As opposed to if you had right now those same people in a room, don't you think that they'd probably get along a little bit better 2 years into this thing and could navigate this a much better way? But instead, you have new commissioners, and then they're it's not what it was 2 years ago, really, in many ways. So, that flew the coop, that opportunity. You can point fingers if you like to, but the point is that whatever they were talking about then is not relevant as much to now. It's the reason why they're talking about things the way that they're talking about them.
What led to now.
But that's what led to now and not what's going to necessarily be what we talk about in the future.
Sanki quoted in this article about why did he become so hardline. He goes, when we ended that meeting in 2022 without a decision, I was clear. If you are going to walk away from this opportunity, we are going to reevaluate our position on format, revenue sharing, and governance. People called me and said, why did you take such a hard line? Why did you put us in this position? Sanki, you guys walked away from the deal, which led to, all right, we're going to take as much of what we can get as possible. There's much more to get to with this, and we will at around 5:30.
And I'm going to comment on that particular line because I know we got to get to the first break before we get to the rest of the show. But when people say, I believe that Greg Sanki has the greater interest of college athletics at heart, I believe he did right there. At least at that time, that's when he still could make room in his heart to say, this is the best thing going forward. But then when he saw how everyone else reacted, he's like, all right, you guys triple dog dared me. Here we go.
It was his villain turn.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's basically the moment that he crossed over and became the villain, so to speak. I know his fan bases won't feel that way, and I don't mean it the way that it sounds, but yeah, that's basically what happened. It's like, yeah, you double dog dared me. You didn't think I had the guts to do it. All right, here we are, and guess who's got the power, and guess who's going to navigate this thing?
Yep.
Me and my Big Ten buddy, and you guys aren't going to have much control over what happens next. And so, yeah, that's basically what happened is, like I said, flew the coop, that opportunity that they had, the schools and themselves discussing this a couple years ago. They had a better offer on the table, I think, for everybody. And now you basically got Greg Sanki going, all right, we're just going to take it all and do what we will. And now you've got the disparity that you have, which is still going to be the big issue, I think, moving forward and kind of figuring out how all of this looks and how it operates and how competitive it all really is. You know, I hear plenty of, well, it's always been imbalanced, and yes, to some extent that's true, but never like this. Never like what it's about to be. Never even close to anything like this, the disparity in payments between a large gulf of schools. So, I mean, maybe people should have listened, but it's too late to do that now. And so how far do the Big Ten and the SEC take this, and what does that turn into ultimately, I think, is what we're all wondering now.
I was at the Baylor spring practice on Saturdays talking to somebody in the administration. This story that Craig and I discussed on Friday about the $1 billion lawsuit against the NCAA and its member schools, that includes everybody that's a part of FBS. And that is about a $14 million hit for everybody, 70 or so programs who would take the hit. What it was, the Autonomy 5, which is now the 4 major conferences, and also the 2 that are a part of the Pac-12. And he's like, there are some schools that can write that check, but most of them can't even fathom that, even with the money that's generated today in college athletics.
Well, that's the big, I guess, hindrance to moving all the way forward right now.
Jeffrey Kessler's on that,
is trying to figure out what all that's going to look like. Like, how much do schools owe? And certainly that's something that I think a lot of them are preparing for. But, yeah, when you're making $60 million more than a school in another conference, it's going to be easier for Oklahoma to pay that than for Florida State, hence why Florida State's trying to pivot and get out of that for many reasons when it comes to money. But that lawsuit, amongst other lawsuits, are a big part of that money accumulation that you're worried about. And how much are we paying out in just lawsuits? Because, yeah, Texas won't blink. They'll be fine. Some oil guy will cut a check the next week that replaces the money lost if they even notice it's gone to begin with. But there's going to be others that, it's going to be real difficult. There was the quote in the article itself. Our buddy Bob Thompson, also Bob Bowlesby, I think you say friend of the show as well. You mentioned Bowlesby getting up in those early discussions and just walking out that one day. But as they both put it, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. And so, with this lawsuit, everybody's going to take a ding, but it's going to be the schools that aren't making $60 million more than the others through their TV deal that are really going to feel it. And even those who have money will feel it to some extent. So, I think everybody's kind of preparing for that and how they figure out all of these lawsuits. And when the dust settles, what does that even begin to look like? And where are we all sitting at that point?
We, by the way, UT Parking asking about whether Congress will get involved. They have their own problems. They need to figure out how to handle our country, how to work our country, how to run it, and help us. And college athletics just doesn't really need to be on their radar, and it's more for what they're trying to do for their constituents as far as how they look rather than getting something done.
I also think, though, and like mark today down, April 22nd at 3:39 p.m. Congress has been telling them, although Congress isn't good at saying things straight, if you guys come up with something that we can, like if you come up with the idea and tell us this is going to work and it's agreed on and we're not going to have to keep coming back to this, then we will help you pass safeguards to protect it, and we will work with you on that. But what you're doing right now is counterproductive because you're coming to Congress going, tell us what to do. And they're like, we don't have to do anything. Well, we don't know how to do anything.
Yeah, we don't know how to do what we're doing. And it's amazing that we're sitting here. How are we going to help you guys? That's basically what it is. But, the courts are also not going to solve the whole payout thing. Like that lawsuit of the back pay to former athletes and the various other ones that are in play right now, like there's no magic wand that Congress can go like, oh, you don't have to pay anything. Like that goes away.
They're going to pay, or they're going to settle and still pay something.
To your point, there are areas like NIL legislation where you could theoretically have a chance for somebody to come in politically and help you out there. But as we've seen with that, it's very slow moving, and if it's even making progress, it's hard to notice at times. But yeah, with the lawsuits, I mean, that's just something you're going to have to chin up and just take it and see, what's left over in your pocket afterwards. And that's why schools, I mean, as you probably were indicating, schools are preparing their pocketbooks right now. Those that you talk to for what that payout's going to have to look like. Is that fair to say?
Yep. It could give or take whatever, but it's going to cost everybody a chunk.
Yeah.
A chunk of somewhere between what could be 12 and 16 million. And all just depends on how deep and how many schools are a part of paying that chunk.
Yeah, there's another part of the article, Brett Yormark, he said, I can't sit here and say I'm thrilled with the revenue model, but it's the best deal we could get. I'm bullish on the Big 12, which he's said a lot of times, and I'm betting on the future, which he said to us. With the investment we are making in football, we will be in a better position when that look-in presents itself, and that look-in, part of what he helped negotiate, where they will have an opportunity to look in at the contract, depending on realignment, further realignment in 2027. They can reevaluate things then. That's something that he pushed for, but that's about all he got, I think it sounds like from.
And he mentioned that to us in Frisco. Also, on the group of fives, based on if they could have decided back in January of 2022, we talk about the ones at the higher level schools in the FBS. A former president at Troy, Jack Hawkins, said that if they would have agreed back then, each group of five school would have received $3.3 million each. They ended up getting $1.8 million each. And when you're getting 3.3 rather than 1.8, basically almost twice as much, and that is also something that fell out the window of a car and you never got it back.
Yeah, they just and Ross does such a great job at highlighting these things, but it's just...
Yeah,
it makes you, like we've talked about Congress and the NCAA, like where are there people running things right now in the world where you're like, man, they're killing it? It's just, it's seemingly all bad news all the time.
Yeah, like I don't even know. I can't even say a country and know for sure whether it's like Canada. Nope, they're not happy. Mexico, I don't think they're happy. I don't really know though, but pretty much everywhere in Europe, nope. So on and so forth. It's a long article. Like there's a lot to
12
unpack
pages
from.
when I printed it.
There's a lot to unpack to it. I mean, there's a great quote from the North Texas AD about, the lawsuits that we're talking about.
Yeah,
it's kind of presented.
Used to work in Waco.
It's kind of presented, that part of this big payout that everybody's going to have to pay and everybody's worried about is ultimately the SEC and the Big Ten, since they're the biggest and the best and they've got the most money, they're going to pay for the majority of it. And that's kind of what people expect. But as Jared Mosley points out, and that's what they're worried about too. Like I feel like that's kind of a thing that has to get done, and then we'll really see what's going to happen next, because until that gets situated, there's that hang up that everybody's still involved together, right? And then once you get over that and you kind of have new laws established potentially, or you at least have some of these lawsuit payouts done with, then you can really start to pivot and do what you kind of want to do. But this is kind of everybody's on board in the same boat together with this potential payout to former athletes, for example. But yeah, on the other side of that, as he points out, it's like that's great that the Big Ten and the SEC are probably going to have to pay a big majority of the money forward, but like the money they get is still like way more than we get in the long run. And so where are we in the grand scheme of things? I know people aren't really pressed or worried about North Texas, but there are those schools out there that, you think about just the power schools, so to speak, that are in flux right now. I mean, imagine those schools. I mean, imagine they're holding on to the end of the cape and just hanging on for a ride and not sure where it's going to take them. So, yeah, there's a lot of nervousness, and there should be when you've got all of these court battles going on. But it does feel like this storm's just continuing to brew, and we are going to get on the other side of it at some point. And we've had all the warning signs, and what that looks like will be very, very interesting.
All right, here's the best quote to close it out. And this is from the Miami AD, Dan Radakovich. But we, and this is what the Big 12 needs to do, but we, the ACC, have to play better and get more teams in the college football playoff so that in the next 6-year cycle, when it's reevaluated, we'll get more revenue. It's easier said than done. ACC's got a couple of alphas and a couple of others just underneath of that. The Big 12 needs to have somebody rise to the top, and not just one or two schools, but they got to start winning some of these head-to-head battles and then get to the playoff and win more. All right, go ahead.
I like this one from Jeremiah Donati. We shouldn't be surprised that the conferences and schools are going into this acting solely in the best interest of their conference and respective institutions. We've demonstrated for years that this is our model. We don't make decisions in the interest of the greater good. And I think that nails it. So you can't get mad at Sanki or Petiti when they're doing what's best for them, because that's what everybody's done throughout college athletics. But to your point, that's what I've said all along. What's the cure-all? What can you do? What's the guaranteed thing you can do that can help things? You win. That's all you can really do. And it's going to be harder when you've got $60 million less to budget for your roster every year. But that's all you can do is just go out and try to win and be impactful in doing so.
Jay McClanahan, how do you give back pay when some kids don't even get NIL money or very little? Jay, you remember FinFin? Or you hear about these, what do they call, Paul? Craig, the ones that are like against a company. These
the class actions.
Class action suits. That's kind of in a way what it is. And if you were someone that took FinFin, and I did.
If you were at Camp Lejeune between 2000 and whatever it was.
They'll have to have people call and contact them, and then they'll have to make sure that they're actually being honest to where they were.
I've never been to Camp Lejeune, but I get a lot of emails about that. Yeah. Clearly somebody thinks I have.
But that's the way to look at it. It's you were at Camp Lejeune a certain time period. You have an ability to file a lawsuit. So, all these former athletes can say, well, we didn't get our fair shake, and so we can apply now for what was owed to us.
I took FinFin, and I knew what it could do. At the time, I didn't. I lost a lot of weight. It was like taking speed. My heart never did have any issues. It never did, at least hopefully not up until now. And I never did join that lawsuit because I felt that would be incredibly hypocritical, because I knew when it started what it was going to do.
Could this be a reason why it's never been out of your system, though? So maybe we can get in a lawsuit now. I'm
Forever
just saying.
Speed.
Yeah.
All right. When we come back, a little bit later on at 4 o'clock, Arizona has, of course, with Coach Brennan. We're going to discuss that with Jason Scheer. We might move Jason back. Let's get into some of what happened during the spring drills. Also, again, the transfer portal. Scotty Scheffler is on a heater. That and more. This is 365 Sports. PettyClinicLowT.com. Dr. Kent Petty can help you become the high-performance man you want to be, need to be, and used to be. What does that mean? 1 out of every 3 or 4 men have symptomatic issues of low testosterone. It is going to happen to you, or 1 out of every 3 or 4 men as you get older. Usually this starts to occur in your mid-30s, and then as you get older, your testosterone level can drop. Dr. Petty will set you up to get your blood work. He gets the results to check your testosterone level, and if it is too low, he can put you in a program to increase it so you can become the high-performance man you want to be, need to be, and used to be at PettyClinicLowT.com.
It's Dodge Power Shot Days at Allen Samuels in Waco, where the thrill of the drive meets unbeatable savings. Feel the adrenaline as you conquer the road in a 2023 Dodge Durango RT. Now with a jaw-dropping $12,500 off. Or unleash the power of the 2023 Dodge Charger or Challenger RT, now available with remarkable $11,000 off. Feel the rush of pure performance and style as you dominate the urban jungle. Don't miss your chance to experience the thrill of Dodge Power Shot Days. Hurry in and claim these incredible savings before they're gone. Come by. Let's be friends. trends.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one, commercial, farm and ranch, or residential. Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected, get involved. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
Let the journey to financial brilliance begin with Genco's limited time offers. Max your earnings with a Kasasa cash account and get paid monthly with a 4.25 APY. That's $425 annually. Then invest in a 13-month share certificate and earn 4.9 APY. That's $529. Earn cash and outshine the rest. At Genco, we offer you the sun and the moon. Kasasa based on average daily balance of $10,000. Certificate based on $10,000 investment. See GencoFCU.org for details. NCUA.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Garrett Ross, you lead the way, sir. You go with whatever you want. Let's go with FSU and ACC initially. Because we had like 9 different tweets and discussions and quotes from people who were watching the trial, including Matt Baker. And the next thing you know, at the end of the day, this is from Rohan Law, who was following it. Well, complaint dismissed. The FSU complaint dismissed. Now, that looks like they lost. But Judge Cooper grants the motion to dismiss with leave to amend on the issue of personal jurisdiction, and on and on. What this means is FSU needs to not regroup, but they need to go back to the drawing board, come back with better maybe material and or a focus on exactly what they're after.
Well, yeah, he told the ACC that the ACC is arguing that because the contract was not in Florida, it's like for multiple states, that the grant of rights and all these things don't necessarily apply. And he said, well, you're doing business in Florida, so it does apply. So really when it comes to jurisdiction, they need to refile it under some different parameters. So the lawsuit's not over. The other thing I would say is he said within 90 days, there's going to be discovery in this case. And with 120 days, he'll send them to mediation because that's what he does for every case other than severe cases of real estate fraud. So everything that this judge hears, he sends to mediation, even if it's going to come back to him. So in the next 3 months, we're going to get discovery, which I still don't think we'll ever see. And then in the next 6 months, we will get, or 5 months, 6 months, we'll get mediation, but we'll see about that.
Could be 3 or 4 months down the road before this thing, as he said, maybe break bread. Craig?
Yeah, this didn't seem like it was that big of a deal in the big picture. Like, this wasn't earth-shaking movement one way or the other. I don't think you say, like, this side won today. It's basically, I guess, based on the Florida State folks I read, I guess you give them a slight,
a split decision.
But nothing that's like, go home and celebrate and act like it's all over. We're nowhere close to that. FSU's attorney did say that they still feel like they can come to a settlement agreement on that overall figure of $140 million, which everybody is expected could get done. It's just a matter of, do you want to get in the room, and at what point do you want to go and knock that out, and everybody can go their separate ways. But for the time being, at least, they are trying to, as much as possible, get determined whether or not they can truly enforce the grant of rights on the ACC side. FSU is attacking those grant of rights and wants to see how ironclad that they are. And obviously, if they can get out of those, and that changes the whole trajectory of this bad boy, because then you're talking about a major difference in the money potentially owed and so on. So, yeah, they're attacking those grant of rights, didn't get any clarity there. And so this just moves on to another phase. I know that I saw where they could have a hearing on the personal jurisdiction, but that's not necessarily. So it's just it's one of those that I don't think today was like a big moment occurred per se. It was more just the jockeying. It's more of the jockeying and just the legal minutia and the ongoing case, if you will. But I still feel like there's a strong chance that they do eventually, before all is said and done, come to an agreement of some sort rather than taking this all the way through. I know, Paul, you felt like that's going to be the case the entire time, that they're never going to get to the discovery stage and then full-on battle in the courtroom, and that nobody really wants that. But, yeah, Florida State and Clemson, for the time being, they're going to try and attack that grant of rights as much as they possibly can. And then if they get an answer one day of like, yeah, you know what, it's not totally enforceable, then voila, and magic, and it can go from there.
You got to pay money. It just may not be $400, $800, $800, $900, or $1 billion, but you're going to have to pay some money. That might be the key.
Early on, Florida State's argument today, they said, look, what the biggest thing that we're kind of looking for here is the grant of rights can be negotiated, in our opinion, but the penalty is arbitrary and unlawful. Like it's too punitive, the penalty. So they're trying to get
the same one that Texas and Oklahoma had to abide by, even though even then they ended up paying a little bit less than what people thought.
Yeah, they're saying the penalty is more too punitive for them to be able to conduct reasonable business on this. But the winner in any kind of discovery is the one who cares less about what you find out. Yeah. So if FSU and Clemson don't really want it out there, but they still care less about, I don't care really what you find out about us. We're maybe even by filing this lawsuit and saying we're unhappy, we're admitting that this stupid decision was made by us to sign this deal. So that'll be all out. Everybody kind of knows that. We want to see your dirty laundry here. And that's where the ACC and ESPN will be like, well, we don't really want people to see that.
All right. The spring game, we'll start with Arch Manning. Had a hell of a day. I looked at the highlight tapes I watched a bunch of different reels of highlights of teams that had their spring games, etc. over the weekend. 19 of 25 passing, 355, 3 touchdowns. Jelani McDonald picked him off at the end, but the former Connolly star here in Waco had touchdowns to more blue. The one to blue was impressive, kind of a slant. Obviously, Isaiah Bond, the transfer from Alabama. So everybody is frothing at the mouth. It was very impressive. Ewers is still QB1. Texas fans can debate that if they want. If they want, some will, some won't.
Yeah, it's Quinn Ewers' team. That's still the case, but it's cool to see Arch Manning out there. I'm not one of those that kind of fanboys for him. I think if I was younger, maybe I would, because I did that for Adrian Peterson back in the day when we were kind of close in age. I was like, wow, this dude's a stud. So, he's got a big audience already, and people are clamoring to see more of Arch Manning. And so they got that opportunity on Saturday, and it was everything you wanted it to be, right? If you're a person that's rooting for him and you're a Texas fan, you got your fill on Saturday, and it's exciting to see what that could eventually turn into. But there is one caveat. He's still got Quinn Ewers in front of him, but you also take into account Trey Owens and what he did.
Yep. You go ahead and say that, Craig, as you put up the next tweet, Garrett. Their
other young quarterback, Trey Owens, Texas fans, a ton of confidence. Yeah, with the depth chart, Trey Owens had a big day as well, connected with their big 5-star new wide receiver in Ryan Wingo on a touchdown that, if you're checking the boxes of what you'd like to see as a Texas fan, there were a bunch of them that got checked. Your quarterback room in particular provided a lot of those checks. And so, yeah, it's very exciting, whereas there are a lot of programs that are having a hard time managing, even having like a 2-man depth chart because of competition and opportunities elsewhere in the transfer portal. Sarkisian, with his reputation as a quarterback whisperer, and then Texas having the foundation that they do to be able to take care of their athletes on a level that not a lot of people can, they do have the luxury of that combination, providing them with probably the best quarterback room top to bottom, arguably in college football right now. You can have the argument, I guess, other places, but it's right there in the talk. And so a lot to be excited about when it comes to the future. And still with Quinn Ewers, he's got a lot that's potentially there that we haven't seen from him just yet.
Well, think about their room, and they lost, obviously, Malik Murphy.
Yeah.
And he moved on, who's going to start this next year. One of the things that scrimmage or that game was also set up, and I think I saw this from somebody, I don't know if it was UT or Paxton, it was kind of an offense that was against a defense that wasn't going to show too much. They did have some pressure, but it was almost set up to have an explosive type game.
Yeah, as most spring games are, right?
Yeah.
And so, you got Owens throwing a bunch of touchdowns, Manning's throwing a bunch of touchdowns. Lots of scoring, lots of fun. So, yeah, I think you got your time's worth, time well spent on Saturday if you're a Texas fan or just a fan of some of the guys that were involved there. But, yeah, the quarterbacks definitely were headliners. Again, Wingo, when you think about who they're replacing with A.D. Mitchell and obviously Xavier Worthy, like how quickly can that young 5-star roll in and make an impact?
Wingo, Bond.
Yeah, Isaiah Bond, and so on and so forth. They're going to be loaded on offense so long as Sark's the head coach, but it's really, you could see signs of just how healthy they are on Saturday. So, a lot to get excited about. Also, not too excited because it is a spring game after all, but they clearly are on a nice little run right now. There's no doubt about it, especially at quarterback.
All right, speaking of a shootout game, Mississippi State, Jeff Lebby, first year there. Blake Shapen, former Baylor quarterback, 18 of 22, 312 yards, 3 touchdowns, long passes, 60 yards. A lot of them were fades, which is what you run in the Lebby offense. Plus, you try to hope you pound the midsection like that offense has done for so many years. But apparently, Blake Shapen at least had the Mississippi State fan base excited. A different offense than what he's been a part of when he was at Baylor. And good for him. If he has a good year, good luck. Blake Shapen with a pretty nice spring game, too.
Yeah, it's good to see that for them, for Mississippi State. Hopefully he's adjusting well and, if he's adjusts well to that offense, it kind of makes Baylor seem a little silly to have kept with the wide zone and not adjusted. But you never know these things. It worked for a little while, so why not change it? But I don't know. Like, people get excited about quarterback play in the spring game. It's like, well,
I know
they're not allowed to actually be tackled.
Right, yeah.
Like, it's one thing for the other coach and referees to be mad at you for hitting a quarterback late. It's another thing for your coaches to be like, what are you doing? So,
Jason Shear, by the way, is good for 4:30, so we're good.
Yeah.
So with Blake Shapen, that's great that he had a big day. We'll see if it translates to the field of the regular season. But, yeah, that was a really nice showing and certainly seemed like a lot of people were pumped up for that. You know how fickle people can be, though, so he's got to go do it in real time, real action. But for a guy who definitely took a lot of lumps and a lot of criticism, and I think some of it was definitely unfairly, that – he's got this new opportunity is great, and one of the benefits of the transfer portal, because I cannot imagine how toxic it would have been if he had returned to Baylor for another year. I just think the fan base would have revolted and just lost their minds if that would have been the case, because you got your fill. It was time for him to go and do something different. It was time for them to pivot and do something different. Both sides can win here. I think they're excited about the offense they have now and the quarterbacks that they have now. And obviously Mississippi State, Jeff Lebby, there's some excitement there with the new system, new coach, new style, and new quarterback. So, I need to see him do it all year long. But that's a nice start for Blake Shapen, and certainly he deserves a little bit of positivity.
It seems like the Baylor football program has that with Charlie Brewer and then Blake Shapen. It was not quite as toxic.
Well, they're both similar, too.
Very similar.
They look alike to some extent.
Number.
Size-wise, style-wise, all that. So, Blake can throw it around, man. He just – yeah, he was running the wide zone the last couple of years, and they didn't have a great running game either time. So he was not always put in the best situations. There was health at times as well, but the dude's got skills. Let's see how he can do over the course of an entire season in the SEC. But what a great litmus test that's going to be for him. So he's going to get challenged more than ever before, and if he passes those challenges, then I think there'll be plenty of people that are rooting for him to do well.
All right, let's break here, Garrett, and we're going to come back with a couple of notes. One, Colorado starting to fill up their cupboard after losing so many players in the last week, and Dion with a message on that. There's a player from UCF that is transferring. I think it's the third or fourth time. And Texas picks up a defensive tackle from where one of their assistant coaches was, who will help add to a room that lost Byron Murphy and also Tavondre Sweat. And Baylor has had 3 wide receivers already hit the portal. And it might be, well, it depends on how you think of it, good thing or bad thing. This is 365 Sports. IdealMRI.com in the Central Texas marketplace. $497 is all it will cost you to get an MRI. State-of-the-art imaging machine. Techs and specialists are great. It's easy to get the appointment. That doesn't mean that they don't always have somebody getting an appointment, getting inside to get the MRI of whatever body part it might be, whether it's a knee, a shoulder, a back, or something. I've told you about my experience. These people are very special. Dr. Rob Maxey and the staff and his partners have done a great job. It's located in the Central Texas marketplace in the southern part of I-35 in Waco. $497 or less every time. I've been saying that about them for years. It has never changed. The average MRI is about $1,100, and I would think that's probably gone up by now. Dr. Rob Maxey and Ideal MRI will get to what is the problem of what is hurting you that your orthopedic surgeon or doctor need to see. They will get it to you. Call them or have your doctor, of course, he's got to call them to set up the appointment for a referral and then get it done. IdealMRI.com.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don Humidor in the Townwood Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon wrap fillets, sirloin steaks, bone-in ribeyes, boneless ribeyes, and even prime rib. Cut specifically the way you want, the thickness that you want. They're all delicious. They have Norwegian salmon, mahi-mahi, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey, variety of cheese, and several options of sausage links, and even regular jalapeno or cheese snack sticks, fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, and ground beef, marinated beef or chicken fajitas, and always large briskets and tri-tip available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and tradition continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, a full-service butcher shop and bakery, open Monday through Saturday. The Bauer family, Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
Carry On Solutions is a full-service IT management service provider and provides professional services for businesses servicing clients in the U.S. and globally. They are authorized partners with Microsoft, Quest, Veeam, NetApp, HP Enterprise, and Cisco Duo. Whether you are outsourcing IT services, merging companies, or wanting to tackle cybersecurity challenges, contact Carry On Solutions. We are IT. Call or email Dave at 832-437-0138 or sales@Carryon Solutions. That's CARRION Solutions.com.
This is 365 Sports, powered by SicEm365.com. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
409-365 Sports with Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak. I'm David Smoak. Also, we have those running the mothership in various ways in Jack McKenzie, Emery Winter, and also Garrett Ross. If you haven't, please hit the like and subscribe button. We would appreciate that. Now, Baylor spring practice. They had one indoor. Jack was there. I was there. And you could only do so much. But I saw there was some competition. I saw a couple of the young receivers looked like they made plays. The transfer, Hawkins. Keatron Jackson was good. Made a couple of those 50-50 balls that I thought were good. One thing they have to get more bodies on the offense and defensive line. And what also they have to do is make sure none of those who have experience on the offensive line or the defensive line walk out the door and go play for somebody else. And I've been saying that since Kapilovich left for Alabama. When you have a couple of the transfers come in, you also know he was part of that staff that brought him in, and you wonder about the attrition there, and I think they just cannot afford any attrition on either side and must bring in some old, grown-ass men that are 21 or 22 years old.
I mean, I agree with you, but none of them are going to Alabama, so I don't have to worry about them following him to Alabama. And if that opened them up to looking elsewhere, well, I don't even know who a good candidate would be, honestly. I don't think they've got guys like that right now. I mean, maybe there's a younger player, an Isaiah Robinson that you feel like could grow into somebody, but I just feel like they're so in flux on that offensive line that I'm not sure who would be getting poached right off the top.
Well, they had a freshman who signed with them that's already decommitted for the next class.
Right.
And that doesn't count towards who's on the roster.
Yeah, I mean, that counts. I guess he committed to Kapilovich.
Yeah.
I know what you mean, though. Like, you're worried about extra attrition when you can't really afford it, but I don't feel like they've got such a good room to begin with that if they had attrition, it's going to massively affect what they're already doing.
That's okay, let me clarify. There may not be anybody that's going to go to Ohio State or Alabama,
right?
But there are places that they could go that are actually straight up with competing with Baylor.
Yeah, I mean, you're worried about numbers for sure. You're worried about depth. You're worried about production, and that could always be affected to what you're saying by more guys leaving, which, yeah, you can really ill afford that at this point. I don't know what kind of options are out there for some of their guys. I mentioned like a young player, maybe gets an offer from some school that committed or recruited him when he was younger or something along those lines because, they see an opening there. But, they are in a spot now where they are very much in flux on both lines. And if they have any more attrition, that's really going to, especially on the defensive line, I would think, really put them in a pickle. But really on both sides, I think it already sort of does because, as Aranda said, they're going to have to attack both in the transfer portal. Well, again, and he also mentioned a pass rusher. So O-line, D-line, and a pass rusher. And I know the latter two go hand in hand somewhat, but I guess you could also get that from a linebacker, I guess, as well. But, yeah, I mean, that's what they're looking for after Saturday. But what's the problem with that, guys? Yeah. Who else? Is everybody else also looking for offensive linemen and defensive linemen and pass rushers? So, yeah, that's a bit of a problem. And I don't know how you solve that. You're going to have to go grab some guys and just and not hope that they are – we can build them into something over the next 4 years, but, like, they need to be able to play, like, right now and at least take up space and take up snaps. That's what they need. They don't need to worry about the next All-American. They need to worry about people that can contribute right away and help take up some of the depth here on both sides of the line. And I think Randa kind of indicated that. They're not going to go out and find, a former 5-star type of a guy that's going to set the world on fire. They need bodies as much as anything. So that'll be an interesting pursuit.
They need bodies means they don't need to lose any bodies. Daniker's the young man that transferred in from Miami of Ohio that I think that they have to be from Ohio that have to be very careful with. He's a 6'3", 330, and you can tell that's a man. That's a grown man. He's been a part of college football from one of those, like they have, when you get him out of the MAC conference and places like that, that's somebody that they make sure they cannot lose one of those 2 transfers that they have at a position that they have struggled with trying to get done.
But, I mean, quite honestly, in the last couple of years, offensive talent-wise, across the board, outside of maybe running back, this staff has not done a good job of getting people that they can't afford to lose. Like, to Craig's point of, you don't want to lose bodies to start over again. What I think is more concerning is when you're starting over again, given their talent evaluation has not been quite spot on as of late, especially at the skill positions in particular to me, where they keep kind of missing. You're not going to go get, you're not going to lose some guys that were busts like Winfield and Neighbors and the guys that they had that didn't work out for them, and then go get better guys. Like, it's the law of diminishing returns here.
Daniker, by the way, is Ohio. I said Miami of Ohio.
Yeah, he's also a 7th-year guy who's been hurt throughout spring.
But he's also a grown-ass man.
No, I get that.
And they don't have many of them.
I get your point. I'm just saying that, he's a 7th-year guy with injuries, and so, you do what you can there, but, I mean, if he leaves, he leaves. They need to keep those guys on campus just like everybody else is trying to keep their roster on campus right now. That's the whole name of the game in the entire world of college football at the moment is keeping your guys on campus. So, they can ill afford any attrition there. And even if they don't have any, they still need to go add bodies, which is what we've been saying. So good luck going and finding offensive lineman and defensive lineman and a pass rusher. Those are the pressing needs at this moment, and we'll see what they can do there. But, that's a recurring issue, it seems like, every kind of season now at this point.
What is the position that has probably been one that Baylor has been trying to fix since Tyquan Thornton left, R.J. Snead transferred out, since the 2021 year?
Well, consider you just mentioned wide receivers.
All right.
Wide receiver.
So this is Gibson, Neighbors, and Winfield. The last couple of years combined for 19 catches for about 200 yards, and I don't know if there was a touchdown in there. Neighbors out of Rockwall Heath I thought would be perfect with what Spavital's going to do because he could be inside the slot. He's gone. Gibson's gone. Winfield, highly recruited player. The Dave Aranda, man, he was so disappointed that he felt like Winfield was finally starting to get everything off the field fixed, and it just didn't translate yet to being on the field. So they have 3 players leaving at a position in which they were not getting much production. So really, you can say maybe they weren't being, maybe it wasn't a good match for them, but they had opportunities. Any wide receiver that's left in the last 2 or 3 years because they weren't getting playing time, they have to look in the mirror because everybody was begging for receivers to step up.
Respectfully, this is nothing more than just needed attrition, and those guys had their opportunities, like you said. I mean, good luck to them all. No hard feelings. Certainly, Armani Winfield's one that you thought that they would get more production out of. At one time, he was Sark's first commit at Texas.
Absolutely, yes.
Now, I know that, I'm sure there's some tale on a Texas message board. They didn't really want him anyways. You know how that always works or whatever. But he flipped to Baylor, regardless of the circumstances. But at least, Sark saw something in him, and then this staff saw something in him, and recruiting services saw something in him, and a whole bunch of big-time programs saw something in him. And I don't know what hasn't connected, but it just never connected, and he made very little impact on the field. I mean, you're going into, year 3, 4 now, and I mean, you're just overdue to produce. So that's not a surprise. And I think he's somebody that they are definitely rooting for and that they feel like has some still gas in the tank, and maybe that'll get ignited with somebody else, but it's just not happening with Baylor football. So that one makes all the sense in the world. Javon Gibson's been very off and on as far as just kind of where he sits. And then Jordan Neighbors, somebody you heard a lot about during times like these, springtime and, off-season time, and then he got into the actual course of the regular season, and you didn't hear as much all of a sudden. So I don't think of those three there's a single guy that you, balk at and go, oh, my God, he's leaving? Or what a loss. And that's not to be disrespectful. It's just true. But can all three of them go out there and have a better impact or a bigger impact or some type of impact for another team? Absolutely. So good luck to them, and I hope they find that opportunity. But there needed to be attrition, and you had 13 scholarship wide receivers, and you have one scholarship to work with. Well, guess where some attrition is going to come from?
Absolutely.
The group that's got multiple fourth-year guys that aren't doing much.
But you also are now running the spread, or the what is that offense that's wide open, and you're going to need to fill you're going to need a bunch of wide receivers.
Sure, but you don't need 13 guys when you already know that 6 of them aren't going to do much for you. I mean, and it's, again, where else are you going to pick from? There's nowhere else to take from. And so I think the logical place when you're looking at attrition was wide receiver, because it's a bloated room with no numbers to really back it up, with the exception of, less than a handful of guys. So
you got Jackson. You have obviously Presley. You have Cameron, who's kind of going to be more of a slot, kind of a bigger body. He spoke with the media afterwards. Also, you have Hawkins, who transferred in from out of pocket. Monterey Baldwin.
Out of Texas State.
Jaden Porter from Lorena. Cameron Bonner. So, yeah, you have Micah Gifford made a nice catch at the end that closed out young man from Weiss High School. So they've got names. They just need more. They need more of everything, honestly, from what I could tell.
I mean, there's a reason why you're going and grabbing 3 wide receiver transfers this offseason. You're not doing that because you really like what you have on campus and you like what you signed. You're going to get 3 transfer wide receivers because you need help. You need help right away. So you're going to get Ashton Hawkins and so on. Was it Jamal Bell? Those are the guys that are now coming in to take the snaps that the other guys who had their opportunities the last 2 and 3 years did not take advantage of. So
Hawkins, who helped beat you last year.
Yeah, so I mean, it's just I think it's pretty clear. There's not really much controversy here as far as the guys leaving or the position group. This is the most logical place to start, and those names that were mentioned, all 3 of those guys, multiple opportunities, and just better if they go somewhere else. And Aranda said on Saturday, he said the exact word, an overabundance at wide receiver. So you knew what was coming, and so no less than 48 hours later, there's 3 wide receivers suddenly in the portal. So that was flashed ahead of time, and that all makes sense. But good luck to those guys, and they need those that are still around to, obviously be super impactful and be ready to make some plays.
We make sure we ask Jason Shear this, and we get him on in about 20 minutes about Texas. 10 minutes. Texas picked up a huge transfer. They needed more bodies because they had one of the ultimate defensive tackle rooms, and then Sweat's gone, Murphy's gone. They had people coming back. Norton is a dude now, 6'6", 325, involved with, again, most of the time defensive tackles don't have a lot of tackles. It's all about disruption, holding up people to help the linebackers clean up. So they got that commitment today from Bill Norton. Also, Dion. We had Sean Keeler on last week to close out the week about Dion in the portal. Once again, I just heard we got another one. The receipts just don't stop. They've been able to fill the cupboard a little bit. It all depends on what level of play those guys are and what they can do for Colorado, but he always loves to keep the receipts, and we also keep what he ended the year with, which is 8 wins or 8 losses in the last 9 games, but they're trying to fill up the Colorado roster in the transfer portal like they've done the first year under Dion.
They picked up a linebacker today. They picked up Dallin Hayden from Ohio State, the running back, just now. So they're getting players. Getting better is a tough thing. You don't know until they play, and the war words between him and Cormani Mclain is getting weird. Of course, I don't really think it's a war words with Dion. He's just answering direct questions when people ask about him. But he's not
at fault.
No.
Cormani Mclain says Cormani McClain's not at fault for whatever,
Yeah, I think he needs to stop talking.
Cormani McClain's high school coach backing up Dion and saying Florida, this happens with Florida kids all the time. Yeah. It does. And that dude, Lakeland High School, they are, I I don't want to call them quite the Duncanville of Florida, but they're pretty damn good. They spill out tons of talent all over the place, and especially of Central Florida, they're the best in that area, hands down, when it comes to players that, name half of the Gators national championship team came out of Lakeland, and so when their coaches say, he didn't really do that stuff here, he was just so talented, he got kind of pampered all the way up through it. That's very telling, because most of the time high school coaches are one of two things. I'm the only guy who can coach him, and these new college coaches don't understand him. Or, no, he's a pain in my ass, too.
I thought Dion was refreshing the way he answered the question about Cormani Mclain not getting playing time last year. I thought it was refreshing. He was honest. Some coaches would say it, some wouldn't, but I thought he was being brutally honest.
Well, I mean, he's definitely Cormani Mclain enjoying the social media attention that this has garnered, for better or worse. And I think that people with just a simple head on their shoulders, kind of reading how all this has gone or paying attention to it, can agree that the best thing for him to do is to move on and go prove himself somewhere. I mean, how about that? But right now it seems like everything's based on his recruiting rankings still. And there's a lot of people who aren't even Dion fans who are saying that Cormani Mclain has Cormani Mclain to blame for being in the transfer portal or it not working out at Colorado. So I hope that message sinks in. Doesn't sound right now like it is. Not saying Colorado's completely without fault in any way, but I do think there are plenty of people that want to just blame Dion over anything and everything that they possibly can, and I don't think that's the deal here. I think that you're dealing with a young man who needs to get it figured out, and there's plenty of reports out there of schools being turned away. You can believe those if you want to, but I think On3 had a report that there's a lot of schools that aren't interested in Cormani Mclain because of the way all this has happened at Colorado. And the schools that were mentioned as far as being after him right now, Memphis was one of them, USF was one of them, UCF was one of them, so maybe he ends up in the Big 12 after all, in different black and gold than Colorado black and gold. But those were the three that were mentioned earlier today for his services. So it's not like Bama's rolling up and, Washington and
he was committed to Miami for a year.
Miami.
And they're not
right. I mean, we'll see where it falls ultimately, but yeah, that's not like the parade of blue bloods that were recruiting him initially. And so I do think there is some merit to being turned off a little bit by just kind of how things went in Boulder.
All right, so on May 1st of 2020, which is almost 4 years ago, he committed to Garrett Ross's LSU Tigers. Signed with them later on that year. In 2023,
who are we talking about?
Xavier Carter. I'm sorry, I'm going to another. You got that one up, Garrett? I saw it. UCF linebacker Xavier Carter has entered the transfer portal. So he committed to LSU. He then went to Vegas, UNLV. He then left Vegas to go to UCF. He's now in the transfer portal. So that will be 4 schools in 4 years. And I saw one response to him being in the portal that he's been to like 4 programs in almost 4 semesters. But UCF's Xavier Carter, entered the portal, and now he awaits what will be his 5th program. Is that right? Fourth program in possibly 4 years.
Well, if you're counting where he was committed, he never played for UCF, right? He did he sign with them originally, or did he committed to them?
He committed to them in January, yeah.
Okay, so
he hadn't just been hanging out in Boca Raton, though. I mean, he's been on campus in Orlando.
Okay, I'm confused on the timeline here with UCF, but yeah, he played a couple years at LSU and was at UNLV last year, and I guess now he's searching for somewhere else to go. So. That's just another kind of poster child for the 3, 4, 5 schools, and let's see who can set the record for the most amount in the quickest amount of time. Like, I wonder what that is right now, 5 schools in 4 years or what it may be. So, yeah, I don't know how healthy that is. Hopefully, like with anybody else, just as human to human, you wish they just find their spot where they can stick and actually grow and blossom and be productive, but that's not necessarily what we're always dealing with. So, yeah, not sure of why all of the bouncing around, but hard to make an impact or hit your broader goals if you're bouncing around like a ping pong ball basically in the transfer portal constantly.
All right, when we come back, Jason Scheer, Arizona. It's the only program of all of the Big 12 that's the incoming, or right now, that we have not touched on since spring drills and practices, etc., began. Jason Scheer will jump in with us. ASU, by the way, saw this a lot with Chris Karpman, that Kenny Dillingham, who had lost some players, had a really good weekend, too. Good for them in Tempe, Arizona. This is 365 Sports. Waco Custom Marketplace, live crawfish. 30-pound sacks of live crawfish available, and the price will go down a little bit almost constantly, I guess, until the live crawfish are no longer going to be available. If you're going to have a crawfish boil, 30-pound sacks of live crawfish available at Waco Custom Marketplace at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco. Crawfish, sausage, corn on the cob, king crab legs if you want to put those in there, the seasoning, what you need, all of what you need when it comes to a crawfish boil. Mushrooms, if you want to put mushrooms in, that too. And of course, what you want, it's there. You can order 30-pound sacks, bags of live crawfish by Wednesday at 6 when they close their doors Wednesday evening, and pick it up anytime after 4 o'clock on Friday or when they're open if you want on Saturday. 30-pound bags of live crawfish available right now for your crawfish boil coming up at Waco Custom Marketplace, Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Cars priced right both day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student-athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student-athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student-athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow at GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student-athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now, here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, this 4 o'clock hour rolling along. We'll have John Cooper on the draft that's coming up later this week, the NFL draft at 5. Ross Dellinger on that really lengthy, detailed story about how we are where we are in college football, although about could be 100,000 pages. He'll join us at 5:30, Paul's Top 5. Jason Scheer, very patient with me because we just had a lot of stuff going on that first hour. Jason, thank you for being patient and coming on when you can. So where is Arizona with Coach Brennan and who they are as they now will eventually hit the break and get into the fall next year?
Yeah, it feels like with Arizona, they're in a somewhat unique situation because not only do they have a new coaching staff, but they still have almost 20 open scholarships. That's what they have to fill. So there's guys at some positions playing in camp that probably when, Arizona's all done with their roster here in the next month or so, won't have a major role. But, the defense pretty much stayed the same. It's a little more aggressive because Arizona retained Dwayne Aquina as defensive coordinator, and the offense is going to be a little different, and so they're installing kind of a whole new offense in a way. So there's been some good days and some bad days, but it seems to be going well. It's only camp, so that remains to be seen, but so far so good.
Jason, what's ultimately going to happen with Tario Davis?
I believe he will wind up staying at Arizona, but it's a really unique situation. I mean, he's still in the portal. He hasn't moved himself. When we asked him why, he said basically he wants to give this coaching staff a chance. My guess is, he'll go through all his spring ball, which is there's another week or so. The spring game is Saturday, actually. And then he'll kind of make a decision. Based on his interactions, based on what he said, it feels like he's going to come back to Arizona. But until he removes his name from the portal, you just never know.
Jason, obviously a lot of guys have moved on with Coach Jed Fish, but also Coach Nansen, now over at Texas. Johnny Nansen has brought in a couple of players now at this point as well. Where do you feel like they've been hit most impacted by the exodus of those in the transfer portal?
Yeah, I think the defensive line, by far. Russell Davis and Isaiah Ward were two defensive ends that got playing time last year. They went to Washington. Tia Savea and Bill Norton were two interior defensive linemen that got a lot of playing time, and they went to Texas. So the defensive line is a major priority. Now, they've gone out and they got a few transfers. Trey Smith from San Jose State, who's really good. Another guy named Chuba Mai, who's very good. But they got to get more defensive linemen. And then I would say cornerback. They have Tario, but they lost their second cornerback, Ephesians Prysock, to Washington. And there's really they lost Jordan Shaw also to Washington, who's another corner. So there's really no depth at all at corner. So defensive line and corner, I think, are probably the two of the biggest priorities in the portal here coming up.
Norton today committed to Texas in the portal. Can you give us a scouting report? He's a big body, 6'6", 325, and how good he is?
Yeah, I like him. First of all, he's a great kid, great locker room guy. Everyone at Arizona loved him. It came down to his relationship with Johnny Nansen and knowing what Nansen is and how he coaches. And, in the system that Arizona plays, the interior defensive linemen don't put up major stats, but he was a run stopper. He graded out as one of Arizona's best players against the run, if not the best, on the defensive line. And he's a guy where, I don't know if he's going to be, all conference or anything like that, but he's going to be a very solid pickup for them.
Jason, how active do you expect him to be in the portal and trying to rope guys in?
Very active. They have no choice. I mean, they're playing their offensive line. They've been banged up. They're playing a walk-on at guard right now. The spring game isn't going to be normal. Usually it's been where they split it up into two teams. They don't even have enough guys to do it. Right now, Brent Redden said the other day it's going to be a little different format. They got to get linemen on both sides of the ball. They got to get better at corner. They have to be aggressive. There's just not a lot of depth at certain positions because really Jed Fish took I would say 80% of the incoming recruiting class.
Have they had Noah Fafita and Tario McMillan just wrapped in bubble wrap basically all spring long?
It's funny you say that. It went through the entire spring, and the other day at practice, T-Mac came down wrong and had a limp. And I think he's fine. We'll know tomorrow when Arizona practices again. But as part of you is like, you know what, we're done here. Just shut him down for the spring. We know what he can do. Let's start him up back in fall camp because those guys are just so important to what Arizona's trying to do on and off the field that, they have to have them. And so when T-Mac went down, everyone was just like, oh, no. But I believe from what I've heard, he should be okay.
Jason, to basketball now. Arizona has not made their big portal move yet, but do you expect something here in the next couple days?
Yeah, Trey Townsend is the guy they're going after from Oakland. It's between Arizona, Ohio State, and Michigan. I don't know if Arizona's the clear leader, but they're right there. They have a very legitimate shot of getting him. If they don't get him, I think there's other guys that they'll pivot to. But he is by far their number one priority. He would come in and start at power forward right away. And, they don't have a lot of room to kind of add portal guys. They probably have, I think they have 3 open scholarships. Caleb Love's decision, whether or not he comes back, that'll decide a lot of what they do with the roster. But Trey Townsend is the guy, and I expect him to decide some win this week.
Jason, I'm not sure if you've had time to read Ross Dellinger's article in Yahoo Sports. He's going to join us in like an hour somewhere about the history of everything, where they are now today with the conferences, where they are. And it all still goes back to the alliance. And did the Pac-12 at all in the last 2 to 3 years make any decision that was good?
No, they didn't. And you're right. Like, it all goes back to the alliance. It all goes back to having the option right there in front. The presidents don't want to. And, I always go back to saying, like, it's just the arrogance of the Pac-12 and the presidents was their downfall. If they hadn't been so arrogant, they would still be there. It is 100%. And look, George obviously has a lot of blame. Don't get me wrong, but the presidents and the arrogance there played a very, very large role.
Yeah, I think Jim Phillips should read the article and go, man, the Pac-12 fell apart in this alliance. Things aren't going well for us here over on the other coast. Maybe I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah. I mean, they're next. That's just the belief is they're next, and these schools must feel confident and that they're going to find a way to get out of, these contracts or whatever. And if that happens, the ACC is going to find itself in a similar position to the Pac-12.
Jason, so with Brennan there and what is obviously, you mentioned a lot of holes, like 20 openings now on the roster. When the portal's open, and it's going to be open, heck, I still don't think it ever really closes, but how much construction do they have to do, and how much time do they actually have to get it done?
A lot of it is depth, which is nice. The defense, they've got the secondary, the safety settled, linebacker, they're pretty good. They still have a starting defensive line that's solid. So it's not like you're going out. I mean, offensively, they have their top linemen, receivers. It's not like you're going out and you're like, we need a starting quarterback, right? I think the goal of Arizona and really every team is to probably get this done by the end of May. I think you want to know who you have by the end of May. I still go back to last season. Arizona's best pass rusher was Taylor Upshaw, and they didn't add him to late May. And I think you're going to see some of that where, I expect more movement this upcoming week with guys that necessarily didn't do well in spring or, Alabama or another school like that says, oh, we need a corner or something like that. And so I expect more movement, but I think you want to know your roster basically by the end of the academic year so you can enter summer workouts and all that, knowing what you have.
So with the changes at coaching at Arizona, and then what you see at Utah, what Dion's doing at Colorado, trying to do, replenish his roster in ASU, how do you rank? And is it easy to say Utah is one? Because Arizona was so good last year. How do you rank the 4 incoming schools to the Big 12 ready for the conference?
I think Utah's probably number 1. They have some questions, but they also are proven right now. And, I honestly believe that Arizona would be 2 and ASU and Colorado kind of fighting it out because the core talent of Arizona State, right? Now, if Arizona loses Tario Davis or someone like that, things change, right? But right now, the core talent that they have is better than the core talent of Colorado and ASU. It's just a matter of, they need offensive linemen. Well, what type of offensive lineman can they land in the portal? If they can go and land a guy that's capable of playing if needed, they'll be fine. If they're landing, guys that just aren't very good, then obviously they won't be. So the quality of the player of the portal is going to determine a lot of that. But the fact that they were able to keep the core together is a very big deal.
Jason, thank you very much. Appreciate your time and also, again, your patience. We had to push him back quite a bit because I was running late. So many things we tried to get off the top when we could get Jeremy Roach, and then also with Brendan Marks with theathletic.com on Jalen Roach.
I've got a little
Jeremy
bit of,
Roach. Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to get that right. Jeremy Roach. Jalen Bridges declared for the draft from Baylor, but yeah, 1 J in, 1 J out for Baylor basketball today.
Is that about the Pac-2?
Yeah, I have some information on the Pac-2 that just came down officially, and Ross Dellinger, shocker, had the write-up here, but the D1 Board of Directors has officially stripped the Pac-12, a.k.a. Oregon State and Washington State, of their autonomous legislative powers and have removed them from their representation has removed their representation on the board. So when they were going over the governance, access, and voting rights portion of the conversation, the board provided conferences that have fallen below membership requirements more guidance about the impact of being below the requirements and the 2-year grace period while they work to get back up to full membership status. The board determined that conferences that are entering a 2-year grace period, which is what Oregon State and Washington State are doing, will, 1, continue to retain representation and voting rights on the D1 Council, the D1 Student Athlete Advisory Committee, and the Football Oversight Committee when applicable. Also, they will continue to retain representation only on sport committees for sports a conference continues to sponsor, and they will be permitted to submit nominations from their conference members for other D1 standing committees. But the big part of this is, the big highlighted part, the board also moved the Pac-12 from an autonomy football bowl subdivision conference to a non-autonomy FBS conference. So that's the big zinger here, is that there's officially no longer a Power 5. Many people had already moved on from that. Many people have already moved beyond 4, but now officially there is not a Power 5.
Well,
there is a Power 4.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and there were a lot of people like, well, there's still Power 5. Well, yeah, until
not now.
Until the paperwork is
exactly.
done. And that's what this is.
These will be effective August 2nd, just to add that on there. But, yeah, they are no longer considered an autonomy conference as they had been, so that's significant. That is quite significant.
I've got some Baylor basketball rumors here. Alvin Brooks III could be a name to watch for Mark Pope's staff, and according to Matt Jones, he's supposed to let them know tonight, but this is Kyle Tucker of The Athletic, who we've had on the show before. But the Kentucky and Baylor rumors persist in that, well, they couldn't get Scott Drew, but they can poach who is the best recruiter remaining on staff right now.
Jared Nunes is pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, look, he's not.
No,
here's the
I
thing.
would hate to see Alvin leave, just like Jacobs and Mills and McCaslin and Tang.
This is only good. It's really only good news and proves what Scott can do, is he's putting coaches out in the world at a rate, so if Kentucky hires Alvin Brooks will be a head coach in another year or two anyway, whether he stays or goes. So Scott's going to get another guy. Like, he's not, you don't have to worry about that. It stinks for Baylor that they had this, murderer's row of coaches, but look, if you're a good coach, you're not only a good coach for players, you're a good coach of coaches, and clearly Scott Drew is that.
Yeah, Ricky Bobby in Paducah is saying, this is the Baylor coach we wanted the entire time. We never wanted Scott Drew.
Yeah.
So, yeah, maybe they get a guy from Green and Gold, from the Green and Gold after all. But, yeah, it's just a testament and a compliment to Scott Drew and the coaching staff that he's built, I think, more than anything else. Alvin's been around a long time now, and not surprised if he's going to go take another opportunity at a great program like Kentucky. So that would be a blow to recruiting and the like. But if anything, Scott Drew's proven he can find talent and find assistants, and he'll start to put together another wave of guys. Easier said than done. But yeah, it is kind of feeling like the end of an era. I mean, so many guys have moved on now at this point, and 2 big time assistants this offseason alone. So it's a different world, but he's the guy at the beginning of it all, and that's who you want still around. So we'll see what he does.
So they have he has a young man that's at Phoenix. Of course, they have had a few players, or a few people that are part of the Jazz organization. So Paul Mills at Wichita State, Matt Driscoll at Northern Florida, Jerome Tang at Kansas State, Grant McCaslin, Texas Tech. Obviously, Alvin Brooks, if he moves on. John Jacobs at Florida Atlantic. And I know I'm missing somebody that's pretty obvious.
When all those you mentioned are head coaches, whereas Alvin would be an assistant coach. But, yeah.
I had heard that there was the possibility that Alvin could end up following Jacobs to Florida Atlantic. But, and I traded a text or two with Alvin last night. Couldn't get much from him because he was in the middle of helping, trying to get Scott Drew and all the others, whatever. If he ends up going to Kentucky, God bless him, man. He is salt to the earth, amazing. Incredible guy. And good luck, whatever decision he has to make. How about this news for Baylor football? Adam Schobel, four-star quarterback, is decommitted from Baylor and committed to Mike Gundy in Oklahoma State. He wants to thank the coaching staff for what? Believing, get to work, go Pokes, and go Cardinals, where he has one more year to play high school football.
I had a weird feeling about this without any insight. I don't know, man. I think sometimes you can tell through Twitter, like when things are about to pop. And I definitely got a feeling here recently about Adam Schobel being on shaky ground. And that was without reading a single word in our forums or anything about it. It was all just based on nothing other than just my instincts. And so sure as, you know what, here he is. Like 2 days later, I was just thinking about this.
I was thinking Houston, dude. I was the same way.
Houston? Okay, yeah. I mean, just something seemed off with him. And I don't mean like, oh, you know what I mean, though. It just something about the relationship just felt like it wasn't concrete. And so that's a huge loss. He's a young man that I know has got a lot of potential and a lot of great skills and was a pillar of this upcoming recruiting class. But I also knew that with the way things currently are, that maintaining that class was going to be easier said than done, especially a top quarterback prospect. So I'm not shocked by this. It's a terrific get for Mike Gundy in Oklahoma State. I mean, that's the other focus here is what a great get it is for the Cowboys.
Yep.
But I think, so long as there's kind of things that are just an upheaval around here, it's going to be really hard to recruit traditionally and have guys stick and stay and, believe in the vision. You got to go out and win some games. And when you're not doing that, it doesn't matter how good everything else is or sounds, you're always at risk. And even when you're doing well, you're at risk for guys getting poached. So, that's a big flip right there for the Pokes.
That's a huge deal. I saw where Grayson just recognized that too. And, of course, man, that's a hell of a job right now, is covering – think about, the coaches and how they have to do with it, the staff. But covering recruiting is almost like playing with a copperhead.
Mm-hmm.
It's even at some of the bigger schools that have great success.
Well, I saw somebody on the boards today was talking about, who was it? It was somebody else that had maybe decommitted here recently. Oh, yeah, there was somebody over the weekend. Was there not?
Yeah.
So that's how much we're paying attention to this.
The offensive lineman.
Oh, yeah, wasn't there somebody else that decommitted? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, there was, and that's how much we care. But the response to that was, I don't even know why I follow recruiting to get my hopes up and all this and that. And I definitely understand that no matter what era we're talking about. Like, you can go early 2000s when things were pretty ironclad rules-wise, and you still had those frustrations of signing day flips or putting all your eggs in one basket and not getting a guy. But especially now, like, I think it's, if it's one thing if you're Alabama or Oklahoma or some of those schools when pretty much you're going to get always what you want, and even if you have some misses, you're still going to have the opportunity to swing back and pick up, something else. But I think in general, it's really hard to get as excited about high school recruiting as you used to be able to, because there's just no reason to invest if the guy's not playing right away. No matter what their ranking is, no matter where they're from, no matter how much NIL you pull together. Like, it's just, it can change on a dime. And so I think the days of getting excited about the quarterback commit who's a year out from signing, it's like,
after what happened
what's
with
the point?
Novosad,
And especially if you're a Baylor fan, you've had this happen now multiple times in recent history, whereas you used to be like the playground for quarterbacks. I still think that, the old era, Bryce Petty's not sitting around for 3 years. He's going in the transfer portal and making tens of thousands of dollars. And no matter what he says now, it's easy to say now because it happened the way that it did. But, yeah, it's not an enviable job trying to maintain your high school recruiting, especially top quarterbacks. And he is a top quarterback. So great get from Mike Gundy.
Adam Schobel has committed to Oklahoma State, decommitted from Baylor. And, that's a kick in the you-know-what. And you thought about maybe Houston because of Sean Bell.
Yes.
Being there with Willie Fritz. So
there's still time. Still got another 9 months left or whatever.
The reaction, if you want to have like if you want to go stick your head in a box of razor blades, go stick your head in the forums on that thread. it's something to behold.
Look, it's
again. Why do we not have as many on? Like hardly anybody. Transfer portal, college to college. One thing would try to do that a little bit, like Jeremy Roach, but. Man, the high school commitments to me now are just like rain popping off my back. What do we do with them? See what happens.
It started to me with the kid who went to Auburn that had the Baylor tattoo, whose name I've read, Cam Martin. He was like, man, I'm committed. I got this tattoo and everything else. And it was just another moment in his life, and he didn't. And then after that, you're like, man, if guys are getting tattoos and then flipping, then
that was under duress.
But I mean, it was another thing. But like, if you have a, it was a Bryles thing, but like that was the first one. It's like, man, maybe we should wait on this because you don't know what's going to happen everywhere.
It was 16 though. We had a young man on, kind of in the season who committed, and we were asking about what was the reason why, and he said, "Well, I have a great relationship with the staff. None of them were going to stay." Yeah. And he did, of course, decommit and Jalen Peachtree story and all that goes with it.
The Cam Martin one, for clarification, though, he showed up at the spring game that year, and he was at the head of their 20, what would that have been, the 16 class? And
yes.
He was there visiting, and he had gotten this big, large BU logo tattoo on, I think it was his right shoulder area.
Yeah.
And I remember vividly standing there and watching him go up to Art Bryles and pull up his sleeve and show him, and then I forget, like the reaction was just kind of like, oh, wow, that's incredible. Little did we all know what was about to happen over the next few weeks, months, and sure enough, he got that covered up at some point over the years while he was at Auburn or at some other point. And so, yeah, that was one of those where there was good intentions. But nowadays, you would never put a tattoo on of any school, no matter the situation, because that school you may be in love with may not be the school that's offering you $100,000 the next semester to go and play there, and so it's just it's a topsy-turvy world in recruiting right now where it really is hard to like sit and invest in guys the way that, like, those days are over with pretty much entirely.
And why we rarely have high school players who commit anywhere on this show anymore. It's just
until signing day, when they've actually signed.
That's no point to do it beforehand.
Otherwise,
it used to be we'd have 6 or 8 of them on during the semester, or during the season.
We used to ask him, "Is there anything that can sway you?" They'd be like, "No, rock solid, absolutely. There's nothing. This is the only place. Well, I'm not even going to take any more visits." Oh, you're going to Oregon now, are you?
Yeah. Wow. Oh, I know somebody there, and it's not a big deal, and blah blah blah.
Well, all right, there we are with that. So a lot of moving parts today. I believe we've gotten to pretty much almost all of them. Before we take the break for the 5 o'clock hour, just a non-football note, Scotty Scheffler won this morning, wrapped up another win. Look at his last 5 appearances. 1 at Bay Hill, 1 at the Players' Championship. Both of them are very prestigious. Obviously, the Players' Championship is the tour's like golden deal. Then finished second in Houston and missed like a 6 or 7, 8 foot putt that would have put him in a playoff. Won the Masters and just dominated yesterday early as everybody else around him just like hit the ball in the water. He did too. Still ended up with a great finish today. Tapped in after rain delay and weather delay. He's won 4 of the last 5 tournaments.
There is nothing like Scotty Scheffler's on fire. And of course, I'm sure he's ashamed of himself for that too in Houston. But it was funny. They were showing him yesterday because when they got the rain delay, he had only played 3 holes on Sunday. So he was only through like 3, or maybe he's through 11.
No, he had 3 left.
He had 3 left.
He finished up on 15 with a remarkable shot in the dark. And then,
or like when the rain delay started and then it stopped. But like, it's funny when rain delays happen to broadcasters. We hate it. And Jim Nantz is as professional as you can get, but you can hear it in his voice. He's like, well, if they don't start this in like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And, and basically he was telling them, like, guys, just know that we're playing tomorrow no matter what you say.
Yep.
So let's just do tomorrow.
What about Scheffler's wife is very soon delivering a baby, got through the Masters. If they would have had the delay, which they did, and then if he would have gotten the call this morning, he doesn't finish the tournament, doesn't get the win. That's a possibility.
I did like the one thing that I saw that was kind of funny is he was at the Masters, and I don't know how accurate this was because I'm not a golf fan, but he was talking all that about, family and winning and all that, and then like that night they show him and he's at the bar back in his hometown.
Yeah,
he's like partying it up. It's like, weren't you just on TV talking about the seeing your family? It's like that same night. It's just kind of funny.
He's won $16 million in 44 days on the golf course, the Players' Championship of the Masters, and the one yesterday is a rich tournament, $20 million purse.
Is he what we thought Spieth was there for a second?
He is, and he's won 2 green jackets. Jordan Spieth has been kind of neutral for the most part. So when we come back, the NFL draft comes up later in the week. John Cooper, Our Lad's Guide. What's going on? You're seeing, if you probably see anything now, it's a bunch of rumors being floated just to freak people out. Also, teams manipulating what they might do or what others might think they do. Ross Dellinger, can't wait to get to him. He had a huge article. We've discussed it. And Paul's Top 5, the 5 o'clock hour. This is 365 Sports. It's Dodge Power Shot Days, continuing at Allen Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat in Waco with some of the hottest deals of the year, starting with the new 2024 Dodge Hornet GT all-wheel drive for $29,999. Or how about the 2023, the new Dodge Charger SXT all-wheel drive for $30,990. And the 2023 Dodge Challenger GT at $31,487. How about the 2023 Dodge Charger SXT for $28,925 during Dodge Power Shot Days? If you like extreme, they've got extreme power with the Demon 170 with over 1,000 horsepower. Pop a wheelie straight from the manufacturer and also run on jet fuel. Allen Samuels has one of those last ones left in the country. Call it the last call model, as Dodge will not build the V8 Hemis in 2024. If you want cutting-edge technology, come by and drive the 2023 Jeep Grand Cherokee Limited 4XE. Save over $13,000 in values. 2023 Jeep Grand Cherokee Overland 4XE and save over $15,000 in values. These 2 world-class SUVs run on battery or gas with world-class technology. Allen Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco. Allen Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, entering the last week of the Jeep Celebration event with unbelievable deals like a 2023 Jeep Compass Trailhawk for $29,990, a 2023 Jeep Renegade. This is at Allen Samuels in Waco for $25,714. How about the most decorated SUV ever, a 2023 Grand Cherokee Summit with over $13,000 off MSRP. That's right, a 2023 Grand Cherokee Summit with over $13,000 off MSRP. The latest addition to the Dodge family, the 2023 Dodge Hornet GT, loaded up $37,525, all prices plus tax, title, and license. Ted Teague, the CEO and general manager, he and his staff put together amazing values along with dealership brands as well. You have an opportunity to get the vehicle you want right now. Allen Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, Loop 340 and east of 84 in Waco. Samantha Duvall, TexasBeefHouse.com with me, David Smoak. And tell you what, you guys keep rolling along. You do have yet another date, correct, for an online and live auction?
Yes, our next online and live auction will be Thursday, April 25th.
We've discussed how this has been unique and how people have reacted to it. Has that momentum continued as you've done more?
Yes, it's kind of half and half. We'll have a good amount of people there that are from the area, and then we have probably 40% that we ship out, and everybody that I've delivered locally to has talked about how much fun they had, and they want to know when the next one's going to be. We've gotten great feedback from the people that we've shipped to. They're all just so excited about this event, and they can't wait for the next one to happen.
Premium grade East Texas beef. Customers don't have to go out and buy their beef. TexasBeefHouse.com. From their family and their ranch to your plate. TexasBeefHouse.com.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Our good friend Brad Boozer, Boozer's Jewelers here at 365 Sports. Now, Brad, people who watch and listen to our show know I'm a double-time customer for you, engagement ring and wedding band, and you guys do that great, but that's not all you do at Boozer's Jewelers.
Absolutely, and I always like to say, it's a new year. It's a great way to start the year out. Go through your old jewelry. Go through your wife's jewelry box. Go through anything you're maybe not wearing, something that's broken, something that you're not using. We do a massive amount of custom work. We can take your old jewelry, old diamonds, old watches, and we can convert it into something special for you and make a one-of-a-kind piece of jewelry. And if that's not something you're interested in, a great thing is we can turn that into cash. So we buy gold, we buy diamonds, we'll buy Rolex watches, any kind of heirloom jewelry, anything that's maybe passed down to you.
Boozer's Jewelers, where do they find you, Brad?
We're at 1025 North Valley Mills Drive, right on the corner of Lake Air Drive and Valley Mills with the big clock on the corner.
This is 365 Sports.
The Sikkim 365 app is brought to you by Allen Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. Come by, let's be friends.
John Cooper, our last guide to the NFL draft, and that is this week, which means the month of April is winding down. He joins us with Craig and Paul, David Smoak on 365 Sports. So, John, I kind of watch the chatter. If anyone's talking right now, are there any rumors right now? Is that usually like people setting up speculation on purpose, or some of these quarterbacks going up and down, sliding higher or lower? Is this just what?
I don't understand why the quarterbacks, that would be, unless they're trying to entice somebody to draft up or trade up to get one of those guys. That's the only thing I can figure. Those rumors are out there for sure. I mean, Bill Tobin, the late Bill Tobin, a great man. I want to mention him as a really great GM. Used to tell me, hey, listen to everything, but only about a third of it's accurate, and you don't know which the third is. So believe it. Listen to it, but don't believe it. So it's kind of a double negative there, but that's what he used to say. I always laughed about that. But anyway, the quarterbacks, I think the rumor I'm hearing, and I think it's a rumor, Jaden Daniels not going to the Redskins. I just think that would be a real surprise. He's such a good fit for the offense. I know Daniels' agent supposedly was not happy with the visit, and I don't know how much weight that would hold. But that's one of the rumors we're hearing. We're also hearing the Patriots trading out of that pick to who wants a quarterback there at 3. And the Cardinals, they're open for business from what we understand. And there's, talk of Minnesota trading into that pick. There's even talk of the Giants trading up for a quarterback. So there's a lot of rumors out there.
John, how many quarterbacks do you expect to go in the top 5?
Well, the money says 4, and I think that's accurate. I think it's very likely that 4 quarterbacks will go there. I think the Cardinals are going to trade down, but unless somebody wants to get Marvin Harrison Jr. at that pick, I think that will be a quarterback there too, and I think it's going to be the highest bidder that wants to get him. Unless the Jets or the Patriots are in that bidding war too, moving down.
John, just outside of how they're used, stylistically, all that, what do you feel is the biggest differences or separation between a Marvin Harrison Jr. and a Rome Odunze, or even some of the other top wide receivers out there like a Neighbors?
Well, the way I see it, there's not much difference between all three of those guys. I mean, the big difference there between Neighbors and Harrison and Odunze is size. Harrison has that ideal size, that ideal catch radius, and he's got the best numbers of those guys in terms of those things, being able to go up and get the ball taken away from a receiver. Also a great route runner. Malik Neighbors has great speed, not quite as big, but he's also a great route runner, and he's a guy that can make adjustments in a real short space. And Odunze is a big receiver too. He's got good size, not quite as big as Harrison. He got the same kind of speed that Harrison has. The length might not quite be as good, but very, very similar. So there's not that much difference between the 3 receivers. I think all 3 of them are top 10 picks. But that said, I think Harrison's the best. I still do. I think he can go up and get the ball. He's got such playmaking tools. But they're all good. Somebody's going to get a great receiver with one of those 3.
Quarterbacks and wide receiver. Who will be, in your opinion, or who do you have as the best defensive player on the board?
it goes back and forth. I mean, right now we've got Jared Verse as the top player going, but it's really close after that. I mean, a part of me thinks Latou is the best guy, but there's that red flag with the injury that some teams are not going to be wanting to take a guy that high who's got that history. I think if without that history, I think he would be the top guy. Although it would be close. Then the cornerback, Terrion Arnold, I guess we might have him a little higher than Verse now that I think of it. He's got great speed, great ball skills. He's a very solid football player. So, those would be the top guys in our minds right now. Those a couple of 3 edge rushers there, Chop Robbins or Dallas Turner would be up there. Those guys we think are pretty good players. But the defense is not as good as the offense this year. I think you'll see a lot more offensive players drafted in the first round than you will defensive players this year.
How far do you think we go before we see Brock Bowers? And is it not necessarily a Brock Bowers issue as it is just tight ends in the first round is not necessarily a surefire of value?
I don't think he's going to go much beyond 10, 11, 12. He's just too much of a talent, but I could be wrong on that one. At one point, we thought the Chargers would take him at 5. We're not seeing that now. The Bears, we're up here in the Midwest, and the Bears, there's rumors the Bears would take him, but they can't get the right guy that they want. Whether it's a defensive player or getting the right receiver. So that'll be interesting because I know one of the things that we're hearing about the Bears is they want to really upgrade their receiver room, whether it's a tight end. They've got a good one in Komet. I would be surprised. But Bowers is a talent, and he does some things that even some receivers don't do. So, I don't see him falling that far.
John, a couple of weeks ago, I guess it was, Tavondre Sweat of Texas, the big defensive lineman, gets arrested, DWI. Just sort of where did you peg him initially, and does that what kind of questions do you think that raises, and what kind of effect, if any, do you think that has on his draft stock?
Well, we have a first-round grade on him, late first round. And, we've seen those things happen before, and they haven't really had that much of an effect. I think what's going to have a bigger effect is how the teams look at him in terms of what kind of character does he have overall. They're going to do a lot of investigative work. They've got a security report that comes out about now, and that will tell the tale. I mean, if this is a one-off incident, it's probably not going to be a big deal. But if it's something that's part of his character, he does things like that all the time, maybe gets away with it, not out in the open. The NFL has ways of finding those things out. So that will hurt him, if that's the case. And I think there's a chance. I'm hearing some things that he's not in the greatest condition all the time. And, that, but again, those are rumors. And so you got to be careful of that kind of speculation, but he could slide a little bit.
How much money will that cost him, John? Millions?
Well, yeah, and it would be in the ballpark of probably, if you look at the length of the contract, if he doesn't get a first-round pick, it's going to be in that million ballpark for sure, especially with, different ways of, pretty much there's a salary schedule that they're working with now. So, I'm not sure just how bad that's going to actually be. But nevertheless, if you're not a first-round pick, it does change things in terms of the amount of money over the length of your contract.
John Cooper with us, Our Lad Scouting Service to the NFL Draft.
John, Kansas City picks at 32. Rashee Rice is likely to be suspended for his role, in the whatever drag racing thing that happened. While that probably won't be the full season, he's going to be out a chunk. They already needed to address wide receiver even beyond Hollywood Brown. Do you see that being addressed at 32, or is that something because of the depth of the wide receiver position that they might be able to address later?
I think it depends. We're kind of seeing in our mind there's maybe 25 bona fide first-round picks, and after that it's going to be a lot of best player available at a position of need. So I think they could go receiver. They could go offensive tackle too. I think there's a need there. They have to think of the future. So yeah, I think they will look to pick up a receiver. They want to make sure that receiver room is solid.
John, with it being today is Tuesday. Monday. What happens within the draft rooms or meetings, how much actually changes between now and Thursday? And of course, changes based on how the draft starts to go. But what is done right now? What are they doing?
Well, one of the things they're doing, typically in my experience, is that the scouts are still meeting, and they're going to meet all the way, through the next 2 or 3 days, and then they're going to give them some time off because they're going to be grinding throughout the draft day. In fact, I can remember, I talked to some of the Cardinal scouts years ago. They would go out and play golf on the day before the draft as a group, and so they would kind of take that day off. Powers that be would be pouring over the security reports, the medical reports, some of the last-minute stuff that's coming in, and then they do mock drafts. They do what the fans do. They do their own mock drafts, with a little bit better knowledge than we all have, but their mock drafts can be to see where, when the time comes for us to make our pick, what could happen. And so they try to create as many of these scenarios beforehand so they're prepared for them. If a player that they expect to be there is not, or somebody trades up to get somebody that's not, so, they're trying to prepare for all that. They have pods of players that they would take at a certain pick. And if none of those guys are there, then they've got to be prepared to trade down, trade up, whatever it is. If it looks like our guy's not going to be there, then they have to be ready for that. So they're kind of role playing at this point in time, those kinds of scenarios. That's something that the scouting staffs all do. And I remember when I was first with our lads years and years ago, I would get a couple of scouts would call me, help me on this mock draft, because we did all these mock drafts. In fact, our lads used to do the mock drafts for the Eagles. We're talking 30, 40 years ago. But that's a big thing going on now.
So what would a reality show be like if they, and I know they have the war rooms and now everybody seems to have a picture. Some teams even more so want access to be seen, and everyone acts like that's exactly who they want, kind of like on National Signing Day for high school and college. We got everybody we wanted when we know that's not true. What would a reality show be like if they could put a mic on inside the war room when somebody's pulled out from underneath the team that is expected to draft him?
Well, without naming the team, I was in contact with a good friend of mine that was a coach on the team, and they had 5 guys pegged for 1 pick, and if one of those 5's not there, they were scrambling, and all of a sudden somebody traded up right now to get that player, the last guy on the board, and they were going crazy. And it was just like it was a scramble. It was a 3rd or 4th round pick, and they ended up taking a player that was just flat out the best player on their board, whereas they really wanted to take, I think the position was corner at that point. So there's some scrambling that goes on, more so I think in the later rounds, when you have, pegged certain players that you would take there, and all of a sudden they're not there. Trading down is what you want to do, and then all of a sudden nobody wants to trade with you. Then what are you going to do? And that happens now because, wait a minute, we got 3 minutes left. There's nobody we want. Call up this guy. Call up Joe on the phone. See if he'll trade with us. No, I'm not trading. We don't want to move. We don't want to give anything up to get to that spot.
So
then you got problems.
What about if somebody you didn't expect to be available, especially in the first round, maybe in the second round, when somebody that's highly ranked and thought of, all of a sudden you have all of what you think is what you're going to do, and then some alpha name starts to fall your way. How much scrambling happens with that?
Well, I think in that case, most of the teams are prepared for those kinds of things. And, let's say a guy has a secondary or maybe even a 3rd or 4th need, but they could use a guy on that caliber of player. They'll typically take them. But if they definitely, feel with position of need, like a quarterback that slips down to, say, 15, that you expected to be at the 5th pick in the draft, but you've got your quarterback under contract and a backup, you're not going to take him. But I'll give you an example. When the Ravens took Kyle Hamilton, I don't think they thought Kyle Hamilton was going to be sitting there at 14. And I think they pivoted to Kyle Hamilton because of that. And it worked out very well because he's been a great Swiss Army knife for them. And even though they had, 2 starting safeties under contract at the time.
John, if you were the Cowboys at 24, would you trade back given the fact they don't have very many picks?
Well, it depends. I think if they feel that, this draft, as far as first round talent, goes down to 25 and they feel one of those guys is going to be there, I think I'd take that guy. Other than that, yes, I would trade back. You might see him. You might see a team in this year's draft, which normally, wouldn't trade up, might look to do that if there's a certain player 3 or 4 picks ahead that they want to make sure they get and somebody else doesn't get, as long as they don't have to give up too much. I could see that happening too.
How much did Will McClay help stable, even though they have issues with the cap right now because of some of the big names and they still have a lot to get done? It seems like Will McClay getting involved stabilized who they were on draft day or weekend. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, they've done a nice job, really, overall. I can't complain, there.
John Cooper with us, Our Lads Scouting Service, Our Lads Guide to the NFL Draft. Is there any way 4 of the first 5 picks will be quarterbacks? If that's not the case, what happened?
Well, I think it depends on, I think who's there. And let's say one team, let's say the first 2 quarterbacks are gone, and the teams that might be wanting to trade up don't like those guys, although I think that's not going to be the case. But I think Marvin Harrison Jr., to me, is possibly the best player in this draft. And again, there's a lot of rumors saying, no, we like Malik Neighbors better. And, I don't see that. So I think that he could be pretty well coveted, although there's these other receivers there. I think a guy like that would go. I don't see anybody else in that top 4 right now other than him as a possibility. Or maybe if somebody really likes Neighbors as the best guy.
Last thing.
I just don't see that.
Yeah, how did McCarthy start surging up the boards? What happened with that?
Well, I think a lot of people like him, and have liked him all along. I think, he's got some athletic ability. He's got a strong arm. He really has all the tools that you want. He's got some intangibles that are very solid. The thing is that in some ways that's good, in some ways that's bad. He was driving a Cadillac at Michigan, and he didn't have to win the game. He didn't have to do what Caleb Williams has had to do or Jaden Daniels. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but you just don't know. But if you really watch the tape, yeah, he's got some holes, but maybe he doesn't have as many holes as some of the other guys have. There's some things that the other guys do that are so spectacular, but yet if you really look, there's a couple of things here, a mechanical issue here and so on down the line. McCarthy maybe didn't have the opportunity to show those holes. The only thing I can think of is he didn't layer the ball real well. He throws on one plane. But other than that, he's done everything Michigan asked him to do in that offense, and when he needed to make a play, he could make a play, whether it was, off platform. He could do that. So I think that's where that is coming from. I think teams are wanting a quarterback. They want a solid guy that they feel can develop into a solid quarterback. And the right team, I think he could be very good with. We still have him as kind of a mid-first round guy, but yet we also understand that quarterbacks get pushed way up. And so we can see him going in that top 4.
John, as always, thank you very much for your knowledge, insight, experiences. John Cooper with us on the NFL Draft coming up Thursday night, and then, of course, through the weekend, too. Tomorrow, KT Leviston, former Midway High School star from here in Waco, who's a Kansas State offensive lineman and highly thought of as someone at least that could be drafted among many others at K-State, will join us on the experience he's enjoyed and also the ups and downs of getting ready for what might happen later on this week. And coming up, we'll have Ross Dellinger. This is 365 Sports.
Richard Carr, Buick, GMC, Cadillac, they are the people that you can count on for great customer service, for great pricing, and for great options when it comes to what kind of car, truck, SUV, new or pre-owned that you're looking to get into this month of April. And, last month it was a lot of fun. They were celebrating all of the madness with the big old basketball tournament. Earlier this month we had the eclipse, and so they celebrated madness in March. They're celebrating the eclipse in April, even though it's come and gone. So still take advantage of all these great deals while they last, unlike the eclipse, which was so fleeting, but all month long. Rarely seen savings during this eclipse sales event, including saving $11,000 on a GMC Sierra ATX 4x4. Qualified buyers can also get 1.9% financing for 72 months, and military and first responders can also save an additional $500 as well. That is just one of their many offers. This one, the GMC Sierra ATX 4x4, save thousands right now and get other great benefits as well. But if you are looking to go the pre-owned route, they have a full lot of quality pre-owned cars and trucks, 90 vehicles, highly inspected and ready to roll off the lot, and you can drive them with peace of mind. Plus, 100% credit approval is always their goal, as they say yes when others say no. So just a couple of the many options at your disposal. To learn more information about all the great deals going on right now over at Richard Carr, give them a phone call, go visit them in person during business hours, or look more online. But they have been in business now for 25 years in Central Texas, and over that time has built a reputation as the people you can count on for your automotive needs. Log on to richardcarr.com today. Call now or go see them now off Highway 6 at the Imperial exit.
It was broad daylight. I stepped into a gas station for 5 minutes to grab a snack, and just like that, my car was broken into. They made out like a bandit. My laptop, my phone, everything. I called my agent to see what could be done, and he restored my faith in humanity. My claim was processed so quickly, and I was able to recover my losses.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Thank you for calling your local Marco's Pizza. We're turning up the heat with our new Reaper Cheesy Bread. Fresh, house-made dough is topped with a spicy cheese blend infused with jalapeno, habanero, and Carolina Reaper peppers. At only $5.99, this limited-time product is a hot deal. Add it to your order while you can. A Marco's team member will be with you shortly.
Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it, and that offer on the Reaper Cheesy Bread is available right now at any of the 5 Marco's Pizza locations in Waco, including Belmead, Chita Spring, Robinson, Woodway, and Hewitt. Order online at marcos.com. Call for a pickup or delivery. Marco's Pizza is turning up the heat with their all-new Reaper Cheesy Bread with fresh, hot, house-made dough topped with a spicy cheese blend infused with jalapeno, habanero, and Carolina Reaper peppers, and only $5.99 and for a limited time only. Marco's Pizza, the fastest-growing pizza brand in America, 5 locations in Waco, and the new Reaper Cheesy Bread. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at alliancebanktexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
Ross Dellinger, Yahoo Sports, with another banger. How the new college football playoff format came to be and what it means for the sport's future. Ross, thanks for your time and a great story. My goodness, some juicy nuggets throughout. Part of it was when Bowlesby got up, the meeting's not over. It is for me, and scars. And it doesn't surprise us, but was there something inside of all this that even surprised you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's not, a lot of it probably isn't too surprising the way it went down, but there were certainly, for Greg Sanki, the SEC commissioner, and Tony Pachetti, the Big Ten commissioner, to acknowledge publicly that they would have left the CFP and kind of abandoned all of their conferences and done their own thing if the revenue structure was not to their liking. For them to do that, that was even unexpected for me, for them to publicly do that. So, that piece of it was pretty interesting. For me, I think Jim Phillips, the ACC commissioner, kind of describing the meetings as he did, heated, right, contentious, everybody bargaining, all using those words. That was a little surprising. Everybody was pretty honest in the story with me during interviews about this, and I think part of that is because everybody, in a way, everyone is maybe not completely satisfied with the deal, and that includes the SEC and Big Ten. I think everybody thought they had earned more, and so when you get a situation where the parties, none of the parties are real happy, they tend to talk and want to talk, and that's kind of what happened here.
Ross, you mentioned on Sanki and the revenue and like how he was agreeing to it. Was this where he made his, I guess maybe heel turn would be maybe harsh, or maybe it's not, but it seemed like at this point he was operating under this is what's best for everybody. But if he said, if you guys aren't going to see this and have this stupid alliance or whatever, then I'm moving on and we're just going to move forward.
Yeah, I think that some might say that Greg Sanki now for a couple of years has been on a warpath over the alliance, and I think that might probably be an accurate description. He has found every chance that he could get to criticize the alliance and to mention its failures. And for those listening who don't know what the alliance is, because there are plenty who don't, because it didn't last very long, about 10 months in existence. It was the ACC and Big Ten and Pac-12 got together after Oklahoma and Texas, after the SEC acquired Oklahoma and Texas, basically, and those three leagues got together. They said at the time it wasn't to block any expansion for the CFP, but that's exactly what happened, right? They blocked CFP expansion, which was in part led by the SEC and Notre Dame in the Big 12. Bob Bowlesby was on that subcommittee, and so they blocked the CFP from expanding 2 years ago, and it probably cost a lot of money. It cost themselves a lot of money. One of the leagues doesn't even exist anymore, and who knows, it may have had they voted for that expansion 2 years ago. So. Every chance Sanki gets, he does make mention of the alliance and its failures and why it delayed the expansion process, how frustrating it was, and I think I believe I quoted him in that story as saying it, but from that January 2022 meeting where Bob Bowlesby infamously got up midway through the meeting and left because he was so frustrated at the alliance and their indecision. And their purposeful, it seemed, delays on this process. At that same meeting, I think Sanki got up and told the room that the next time that they would have a proposal on the table, it would not look like that one. And lo and behold, 2 years later, boy, it did not.
So do you think, with the benefit of hindsight, there's a lot of people that could use that and make different decisions they did, primarily the alliance, but would Bob Bowlesby sit and grit his teeth through that meeting knowing what would come next, or do you think that was just inevitable anyways?
This probably was inevitable, the two leagues, SEC and Big Ten, growing, larger and more powerful and kind of being aggressive. I'm sure this was gonna happen, likely, but certainly it was expedited because of what happened 2 years ago and the delay, and then that may be leading to further expansion and then further realignment, and then all of a sudden, so things just kind of got accelerated. Right. What I would love to know, is the regret from the members of the alliance, and really I was only able to speak to one. George Kliavkoff is not speaking to media, and and Kevin Warren's now just out of college athletics. But Jim Phillips, the only one remains of the alliance. He did tell me, I quote him in that piece, and he did tell me he doesn't believe that that 2 years ago in 2022 that the proposal was finalized enough to say that it would have been vastly different than this one. Now, there are 4 or 5 people who are in the room that disagree with him, right? And they say that the proposal was very different. It was more measured and it was more fair, as Bob Bowlesby put it. Jack Hawkins is a president who's on the CFP board of managers, the board of presidents that governs the CFP. He said, for instance, this is just one example, but he said that the previous proposal 2 years ago, that the group of 5 would have gotten roughly twice as much money in distribution from the CFP as it is getting this time around. So a lot of people disagreed with Jim Phillips that 2 years ago the proposal would have been a lot less fair. He seemed to think that there was really no proposal and that it wasn't close to any kind of finalization.
So this $1 billion lawsuit that Jeffrey Kessler, I think, is the one that is against the NCAA, $1 billion. How many of the FBS schools will be up to pick up that tab? And will the bigger conferences making the most money pay the same as much as ACC or Big 12 schools, or will they pay more?
No, well, those are great questions. We don't really know the answer. This is the most significant of all the things that could impact or determine a future model of college athletics. This is the biggest one. It's the House antitrust lawsuit, and Jeffrey Kessler is the lead attorney, as you mentioned. He's Tom Brady's former attorney. And he is the lead attorney in the case for the plaintiffs who are suing the NCAA in the power conferences, seeking basically back pay for NIL of the previous 4 years before NIL came into existence. So 2017, 2018, 2019, and 2020. If you combine those 4 years of name, image, and likeness pay based on broadcasting rights and such, you get a number that's probably well over $1 billion. A settlement could be more in the billion range, and that's what's going on. The discussion is whether college leaders will settle or not. Seems to me that there will be a settlement at some point, and the settlement is twofold. It is the back pay, the $1 billion, and it's the forward pay of a revenue sharing model for athletes in the future. It has to be both of those things. So it's extremely costly. Now, to your question, the lawsuit only focuses really on the power conference teams. So the 4 power conferences, about 70 teams, that's the focus for Jeffrey Kessler and the plaintiffs. The group of 5, the FCS, all other NCAA programs, I don't think will be in any way required to be a part of a revenue sharing moving forward, right? Now, will they have to contribute a portion to back pay? Maybe they might have to pool their money. The NCAA itself, the NCAA as an organization is a defendant. They are listed, and of course, the NCAA's main source of revenue is the NCAA basketball tournament. Produces about $1.8 billion or so a year in revenue. So they'd have to use that money, which if they're going to use that money, right, that's the money they distribute to schools. So it would be coming in a way from the schools. But the real important part of any kind of house settlement is the future revenue sharing. And I think there's been numbers floated out there. I put it in the story. My last week's story with Jeffrey Kessler and in the CFP story is $15 to $20 million per year per school, per Power 5 school, would potentially be shared with athletes. That's kind of the numbers that are right now being thrown around. Obviously, that's a significant portion. You asked if it would be different depending on, a school's total athletic budget. It probably should, right? A lot of people would think that it should, that would be more fair. I don't know if that's going to be the case, though. and we haven't gotten to a point where there's a settlement proposal, I don't think. So we don't know the answer to that yet.
Craig brought up your other news, and there's other news that's going on today, but the news about the Pac-2, Oregon State and Washington State, and them losing the autonomy, title. Is that immediately? Do they have any kind of window? That's not a surprise, but can you kind of explain what all that actually means?
Well, yeah. So the Pac-2 now have what they call it's a grace period for the NCAA. You get 2 years to get back. If a conference falls, I should say first that to be considered an FBS conference by the NCAA standards, you have to have at least 7 members, I believe, 7 conference members. Well, obviously the Pac-12 won't have that, right? It'll have 2 members. But you get 2-year grace period to get back to that threshold, that at least 7 conference members. If you don't get there by 2 years, then you're no longer deemed as a conference by the NCAA. You would lose a lot of distribution, right? You lose a ton of money. What happened today, because there's still a conference, but what happened today is they've been deemed now, they've been stripped, I guess, of their autonomous powers, legislative powers. You know, the Power 5, or now the Power 4, they have legislative autonomous power. So they have weighted voting in NCAA decision making, and they get more of a weighted voting. They get autonomous powers, just like in the CFP revenue distribution model. They get more money, right? They get more voting rights in the NCAA. So they've been stripped of that. So now they're just a non-autonomous, basically a group of 5. That's what they are now. So that's what happened. And no, it's not effective until August. So I think it's August 1st or August 2nd is when that starts. And they'll have 2 years from that August date to get back to 7 conference members. And if they don't, then they won't be a conference at all. So they'll go from being power league to a group of 5 like they are now, treated by the NCAA as we saw today. And then they'll go from a group of 5 conference to not being a conference at all if they don't get back to that 7 league threshold.
Ross, you had a quote from Jared Mosley from North Texas in the article about there's been no discussion about the G5 or what the plan is when they get like all of these things. Does the G5 need to get together and discuss a plan B?
Yeah, and I it's a good question. I think they are. I think that a lot of folks in the G5 are in the middle of discussions over what they should do, what their next steps are. Because, like I said, the House lawsuit focuses only on the Power 5, and I should say, I wrote this I believe in the fall. I think I was on with you guys after I wrote the piece on Greg Sanki where I followed him around. And it was in that story about the House lawsuit and how the House lawsuit and any settlement around it will be the wedge that really breaks up the FBS. And you'll have Power 5 schools sharing revenue with athletes, and you have Group of 5 schools that can't and probably won't, many of them. I mean, Group of 5 schools don't really turn a profit on football like Power 5. They rely on student fees and university funding, state funding. So they can't share revenue like the Power 5 in a Power 4. And so that's going to be a separating factor, and it's going to drive a wedge into FBS and really be the split, and a big gap will probably continue to widen between the power leagues and those in the Group of 5. And there's plenty in the Group of 5, plenty of athletic administrators and coaches who wish the Group of 5 would do something else, would create their own playoff like FCS. But as we know, right, the CFP has guaranteed them a spot in the playoff starting in 2026 in a deal that runs through 2031. So they at least have a spot, but certainly their distribution has plummeted. And there'll be another issue that will widen the gap is this revenue sharing that could come with the settlement with the House case. And that's something that I think really concerns Group of 5 administrators. You mentioned Jared Mosley. He had a great quote in there about how, hey, look, we're sitting here and while this CFP distribution, revenue distribution model is great for the Big Ten and SEC, they're kind of just thinking about themselves. What do we do, sort of thing? What does it mean for us? The Group of Five went from earning 19% of the CFP distribution to earning 9% of the CFP distribution in this new deal.
Ross, is all. I called it a banger of a story. It's true. That's a compliment. Great stuff. A lot of nuggets in there that were great quotes, scars, etc.
Yeah, I like this one. 5 power leagues could not survive, neither can 4. There's all this talk, Ross, about the ACC and further realignment and what the Big Ten and the SEC might grow to eventually, but it does feel like not only the governance structure and the power structure is inevitably going to change, but the landscape itself. I know there's all the talk about super leagues and things like that, but it's just further reinforced by the voices that are involved in this in your article, isn't it?
Well, it's a great segue to, and that's a good quote about, 5 power leagues couldn't survive and 4 will not either. And it's a great segue to something we didn't talk about, which is in the footprint there in the Big 12. The Big 12 Commissioner Brett Yormark getting his look-in provision. He was a big proponent of adding a look-in concept into this new deal, which means after the 2027 playoffs, so 4 years from now, they'll have a reevaluation of all the revenue structure and all of that. And that probably was put in there in consideration for what's going on in the ACC, in the break apart, because if you have the ACC break apart, you want to look into that deal and potentially have a change to the revenue structure. We could see that happen in 4 years.
Ross, thank you. Great stuff. Appreciate your time as always. Ross Dellinger, Yahoo Sports, with that story. If you haven't read it, it's like 11 or 12 pages when I sent it to Paul Craig and Garrett to read, and great that he was available to us, because we always appreciate his time, along with any national columnist, when there's a story like this with the sport we cover.
Yeah, it's just a really interesting read with a lot of information. It's a lengthy read, so you kind of like carve out your spot on the couch and print it out or something, or have your phone with enough battery to get through it, but in a good way, because it's fascinating. All the different quotes, too. I mean, that one that I just read off, 5 power leagues could not survive, neither can 4. They'd all love to rip one of the 4 apart and make it a big 3. There's a lot of stuff like that in there. So, yeah, I think this all points towards where we've seen it pointing already, as far as two leagues making their own sets of rules, or being those that are at the head of the rulemaking, and then a lot of other schools that are all currently technically under the same umbrella, just not feasibly being under one umbrella anymore. I mean, it just seems like it's going to be near impossible to keep things as they are, obviously, just in general, much less if there's further realignment and so on and so forth. So, I mean, it takes a great in-depth look at pretty much every facet of this whole conversation, from the governance piece to the realignment piece to the future piece and everything in between. And so, yeah, it's a lot to unpack, but it's very interesting. And you know what? Not necessarily bad news for the Big 12 there at the end. I mean, they're still alive, unlike the Pac-2, Pac-12, I mean, which is now obviously taking a step back as of today. And who knows what their future holds. And then the ACC is the one dealing with the lawsuit right now. I mean, they're the one that's got the teams that are rattling the cage, threatening to leave. So if you're Brett Yormark and company, make good decisions and be mindful of the situation that you're in, because you could have been just not even in existence a couple of years ago at this stage. I mean, if you had predicted the day Oklahoma and Texas left that the Big 12 would be...
Don't turn your back on anybody.
No, of course not. I mean, I'd be eyeing Kansas and Oklahoma State and every other school that feels like they'd have a shot to go somewhere else, whether that's valid or not. West Virginia, whoever. You see everybody rumor mill on where they think their school could go or what they think might happen. Yeah, you definitely don't feel like your hen house is safe from the wolves. Absolutely not. You should have learned that lesson 10 times over at this stage if you're the Big 12. But in general, I think you like where you are in comparison to everybody else not named the SEC or the Big 10 at this point, because even if the ACC is making a little bit more money, we know that that's all on eggshells right now and could crater with the whim of a court decision. So, yeah, Still a lot to work out. Nobody feels safe unless they're the SEC or the Big Ten. But
and even some of those have to start wondering a little bit about the future.
Yeah, I think that conversation eventually comes as well, because it's going to be hard to pass off some of those as the elite of the elite Super League types. So, yeah, it's all very, very interesting.
All right, so Florida State, ACC are going to go down the road and try to figure this out again. The judge says you have a little time, Florida State, to come back with a different set of whatever. Savion Red, Texas running back in the portal. Baylor lost 3 receivers today to the portal: Gibson, Winfield, and Neighbors.
Not one single
Not
one of them
again,
would matter.
like 10 or 12 overall catches. Arizona defensive lineman signs going to commit to Texas, a defensive tackle. Adam Schobel, Baylor commit, now an Oklahoma State commit. Tyrese Hunter headed to Memphis. These are all just today, and there's so much more. Of course, we had Jeremy Roach from Duke to Baylor. He joined us. Jalen Bridges is turning pro. The Pac-2 loses their autonomy on August the 2nd. Let's see. It's just incredible. What a day it's been. We appreciate it. Also, the stories that we brought to you, and I didn't even probably cover it all.
Also, just real quick, of course Jim Phillips told Ross that the deal wasn't that good, because if he's like, no, I effed up, like, again, it would look really stupid on his part. But tell me, ACC, what's he doing for you right now?
Sounds like his name could start with a G, and his last name could start with a K. He sounds very much like he's got some Kliavkoff to him, as opposed to a Kevin Warren who's like, I'm going to throw this grenade and I'm going to leave the room and just watch all you guys scramble.
Like the Joker.
Here, and look, I get that Florida State had started their little beef with the ACC before the championship last year. But the minute that I saw Greg Sanki on TV saying one of these things is not like the other, I would have called up ESPN and be like, get me on a segment as fast as you can, because I'm not going to stand for this.
Yep.
And he was just writing a letter after. I was like, oh, it's a bummer.
Yeah, I was reading that as it sounds like a guy very much with his head still in the sand.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe I'm wrong on that ultimately, but given where they are in their court cases and just the fact that regardless of what happens, I mean, barring some judgment that says Florida State's just simply not allowed under any circumstance to leave, which won't be the case, I mean, they're letting it be known we're leaving regardless. It's just a matter of how much we have to pay on the way out and how quickly can we do it. So that's obviously working against them, and I don't know how he corrects that and rights the ship, but I think thinking that the way that they did things worked out properly and not viewing it as like, yeah, we screwed up and we kind of led to all this is kind of scary if you're an ACC fan that's not a fan of one of those schools that's probably leaving.
With Florida State and Clemson and North Carolina, with some bangers that are inside of that alpha's in your conference, and you could still end up like the Pac-12. Not like that, but it's just, you wonder. Katie Rader, thanks for the super chat. Banging interviews, fellas. Thank you. Good stuff. Thank you, Katie Rader, for the super chat. When we come back, a lot to get to. We're back again tomorrow. And tomorrow, I mentioned KT Leviston from K-State will join us on the NFL draft coming up later this week. Paul's Top 5 is next.
It's time for Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Top 5 fits for Jaden Rashada. He is visiting Georgia tomorrow and Wednesday. I'm not sure what.
You think he's going to visit anybody Thursday?
I do.
Okay.
So I think he does want to make sure that even if he's going to Georgia, he wants to make sure that the money's right, and you can't really do that unless you have another offer or the idea of another offer, especially if one of those schools is another one on this list.
Bro, these top quarterbacks are turning into like network executives where they don't even have to do their job, and they still find out like ways to make more and more money despite not doing their job.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Absolutely. Number 5. Look, if you're looking not to start right away and go and
Isn't
develop,
that where he's supposed to be?
Miami, and he's already committed there at one point of one among the other places he's been committed. But if you're going to sit and develop for a year and they're, maybe on the upswing a little bit, this wouldn't be a bad place to go under a Mario Cristobal. I don't see that happening, but, based on the Georgia criteria, you'd have less resistance to start at Miami than you will a year from now at Georgia. And I still don't know, how much of the, is this him being beaten out or still being in a competition and didn't want to compete? And if he's just ready to go do the Dante
somebody
Moore.
tampered and said, hey, can you come see us?
Or do the Dante Moore thing where he just feels it's better off somewhere else. Shannon Dawson's no Kenny Dillingham, but Miami's better than Arizona State is right now, so I could see him fitting there. I don't think it'll happen.
Yeah, I feel like that bridge is toasted, if not burned, right?
Yeah.
I feel like just emotionally, Hurricanes fans, I don't know, maybe they'd be quick to embrace him, but they're not worried about it this year, like you said. They've got
Uncle
their quarterback.
Luke would come running right back.
Yeah, sounds like it. But yeah, they've got Cam Ward for this season. You could always use quality backup, but beyond that, I'm sure they'll kick the tires on the idea. I don't know what the personal feelings are like, but this is a business where you don't really burn bridges because, as we've seen, especially in this era, there's a really good chance that a guy you miss out on as a recruit is going to be rolling back to you at some point in time, or you'll have the opportunity to re-recruit him. So, what a finishing touch that would be to this story if he ended up back in Miami after all that's happened. But like you said, probably not the most likely here.
No. Number 4, UCF. And again, this is probably not likely because I'm sure there's an NIL component here. Not that UCF maybe couldn't meet it, but I don't know if they would right now. But if you're going to sit behind, KJ Jefferson for a year and then play under a QB guru, you could do worse than getting on the Gus bus. And I think that it would be a fit. He'd do well. But again, he's probably already burned the Sunshine State Bridge with not going to the Gators. So, but UCF, again, I'm just talking about what I think are fits for him and places he could go. And most of them, there's not a lot of places that just have a starting job for him to roll into where he's going to be good, which him visiting Georgia, would lead you to believe that he's ready to sit behind somebody for a year if he's going to do that.
Doesn't it also mean he's pretty damn talented that Georgia wants him to come visit with them?
Yeah. But they're not undefeated either, when it comes to these things. So
it's a nice thought. I don't know really of any connections there that would make this more probable. But, being a quarterback wanting to play for Gus Malzahn is not a crazy idea. I just don't know if that's enough to pull him in the direction of Orlando when clearly you got a Georgia, one of the top 2 programs arguably in the last 10 years, top 3 at worst maybe, but probably top 2 just behind Alabama. When they're banging on your door, no disrespect to the Knights, but I think you're probably going to have other suitors, and I don't know where UCF would fall sort of in the need and the NIL portion and all of those things that might be in play. But that'd be great for them.
Number 3, Washington. Will Rogers for a year, and then perhaps Jaden Rashada under Jed Fish. Does this get him excited? I don't know. But again, if you're going to sit for a year and then play, I think he could do worse than
Is he going to sit for a year?
Well, if he's going to Georgia, he is. That's why I kind of put this in. Now, the number one I have is a place where he maybe wouldn't sit for a year. But if Georgia is on the list, and they are next, and we'll talk about them in a second. But Washington, to me, sit behind Will Rogers and maybe play more. Will Rogers coming off a pretty serious arm injury, too. So you might have maybe even more opportunity to play for UW this year.
Yeah, there's opportunity there. I don't know if he has a connection with Jed Fish or not. I don't really remember his recruitment in detail. But, they obviously turn out good offensive players and great quarterback play. So I'm sure pick up where Noah Fafita left off as far as putting up numbers and go roll with the Huskies if Will Rogers is unable to go, or if he is, you sit back and learn and get ready to whip it around there in the Big Ten in a couple of seasons.
Okay, what you're going to transfer to Georgia because you're going to sit behind what they have now. He needs to play, right?
Okay.
Well, he's not it's not like he's a fourth-year senior
or
something
but
like that.
For a highly rated he's thrown 82 passes in his
that's
career.
what I was saying is we also need to not act like Georgia's not Georgia.
No,
it's totally different from everybody
else.
Let's
go ahead. Let's go ahead and throw them up on the board here because they are number 2. I just think for Jaden Rashada, it's kind of weird to be a sophomore. But look, Dante Moore did the same thing in Oregon. So if you're going to go to a place, then this is probably the best place to go because they're Georgia and they're a juggernaut right now. It would also be just hilarious that Florida botched this up so badly and that eventually he goes to Georgia. But I don't know. Like, to me, that's probably where he's going to go because, again, if Georgia says, we want you, are you going to be able to tell them no? Maybe Jaden Rashada can, but I think, this one, he's not going to start over Carson Beck right now.
No.
So,
and not many of there aren't many quarterbacks in college football that would.
Yeah. So that's where it's kind of strange. Let's go to number 1, Auburn. I've been talking about Auburn for a year now since Hugh got the job there, and they have not really made a big quarterback move. This would be that. It certainly would be. And you've got some, totally in control, well mentally adjusted alumni that that probably would nice. You could convince to throw a bunch of money at you if you're Jaden Rashada. I mean, Auburn handles things really, really well all the time. They're not at all unhinged. So this to me would be the number 1 fit because I think he can go in there and beat out Peyton Thorne a lot easier than he could go play at some of these other spots.
Yeah, I mean, they've also got younger guys, too, though. A guy like a Walker White comes to mind immediately. So it's not like he'd be just the automatic necessarily. But, I mean, they are one of those, I think, 2 or 3 teams that you look at, if not number 1. Another team that was mentioned quite a bit that I saw was Mississippi State, which maybe that's not as much after Blake Shapen's spring game. But, I mean, that's also a spring game. So would he be enticed to play for Jeff Lebby in that style of offense, potentially have Shapen play this year and then go on? I don't know. But, yeah, that was just another school that I saw in passing. But, yeah, Auburn, they don't have a surefire thing necessarily beyond this year. So I definitely feel like for all the talk about Hugh Freeze, the quarterback guru, and all those things, you think they'd have it set up maybe a little bit better than it appears like they do. And they wouldn't have a need at this point, but he would make some sense there, and they do have a little bit of a need. So, yeah, I could see Auburn for sure.
I hope Peyton Thorne has just a brilliant year.
So do I, but
yeah, that was mean.
I mean,
no, I get.
But I mean, look, he's not like, again, he's not going to all of a sudden be Bryce Young. He's not going to be Cam Newton there all of a sudden. It's not. I mean.
Well, I mean, and Hugh Freeze with quarterbacks has always usually been a pretty good.
Yeah, but he had receivers running away from him at Michigan State to go play somewhere else. So
yeah, and I don't think Peyton Thorne's like so good that you're just like, oh, he's just going to start the whole year and be great and all. I mean, like, I don't know. I think transfers kind of get shined up a little bit.
For sure.
In the portal. And so, therefore, I think that, yeah, Jaden Rashada could go over there and make some noise. Nothing's necessarily off limits as far as playing time goes. But, yeah, he'd have to start from behind the 8 ball wherever he goes, any of these schools or any of the other ones that he might be interested in or vice versa. So, really talented player, but yeah, you kind of want to see it at this point.
By the way, the top 5 sponsored by Texas Beef House, the Duvall family. That live auction is coming up on April 25th. I saw where Kim made an order online with them. TexasBeefHouse.com, just outside of Tyler. Live and online auction for Texas-raised Wagyu beef, and about everything you could imagine will be available. All right, thank you, Paul. Appreciate it. Thank you, Emery Winter, Jack McKenzie, and Garrett Ross. Garrett had to weave and wind and maneuver through all sorts of crazy.
A little bit. We got it.
We got it in. Craig Smoak, thank you so much. It's great to be back again for yet another week, and we will be back tomorrow. Paul's Triple Option at 1. We'll be back on live from 3 until 6. For our great sponsors, for those of you inside of the chat room, those who have texted us, and also you just watch or listen and you just kind of mind your own business, we appreciate your support.
Hopefully press that subscribe button as well.
Hit
and
that
thumbs
like
up button.
and pass the
We're
word along.
less than 1,000 to 40,000.
360, yes.
Get there.
365 Sports tonight at 10:30, and every weeknight at 10:30 on the CW. For Paul and Craig, I'm David Smoak. Thank you and have a great night.
Ideal MRI is a small family business right here in Central Texas. We're open to support you while lowering the cost of healthcare bills.